Uncle, with a smug smile, brings Yuna to foreign lands, condemning her to the unknown. The icy gates of the Phoenix Duchy swung open, ushering the heroine into a new, terrifying life. The first ray of hope illuminates Yuna at the sight of a blooming garden in the middle of eternal winter. The girl is amazed by the power of magical stones, capable of creating such a miracle in a cold land. The uncle declares the fortress a new home for his niece, but there is not a drop of warmth in his embrace. The realization of her new status as the wife of an unknown ruler of the north weighs heavily on the girl's shoulders. The contemptuous whispers of the maids behind her back immediately make it clear to the young bride that she is not welcome here. The heroine tries to hide her fear, assuring her uncle that she can cope with the coldness of the northerners. The burden of sacrifice for her tribe falls on Yuna, who is ready to do anything for their good. The girl puts on a mask of a welcoming smile, introducing herself to the servants of her new home. The sudden appearance of a huge figure brings chaos and fear into the tense atmosphere. The cruel and beautiful ruler of the north, Theo de Phoenix, appears before his wife, covered in blood. Horror grips Yuna as her husband's bloody hand reaches straight towards her. Theo's first touch is cold, and his piercing gaze leaves the girl frozen. A young man's chilling confession about his 3 previous marriages hints at the terrible fate of his wives. The strange order about separate rooms for the first year of marriage raises even more questions for the heroine. Theo's secretary, Julius, explains the local customs to the girl with a polite smile, but does not inspire confidence. The insulting news about the room in the tower's attic confirms Yuna's worst fears. Complete loneliness in the empty tower becomes her prison, which the girl realizes with horror. The last hope is dashed when Julius reports that the humiliating confinement was a direct order from Theo. Julius dares to ask Theo why he staged such a frightening spectacle with blood. Theo admits with a cold grin that the brutal encounter was only a warning for his naive wife. Her husband's cruel desire to lock Yuna in a dusty attic like a mouse becomes her bitter reality. The cruel duke asks with obvious pleasure whether the humiliation has broken his new wife. The secretary is visibly nervous as she prepares to tell Theo something completely unexpected. The news of Yuna's smile instead of tears takes the smug duke by surprise. Contrary to expectations, the modest room in the attic seems to Yuna like a real mansion, offering unprecedented privacy. The magical stones that warm her new home fill the heroine with quiet joy. The girl is warmed by the hope that her sacrifice will bring long-awaited warmth to her fellow tribesmen. Her father's angry cry, forbidding her to marry a stranger, echoes in Yuna's memory. The young heiress painfully reminds her father of the disaster that came to their island, where people first experienced cold. Memories take the girl back to the past, when eternal spring reigned on her native island of Ru. A sudden frost hit the Paradise Island, sowing panic among its defenseless inhabitants. Salvation lay in the mysterious stones, capable of providing warmth even in the harshest winter. The Emperor's fateful offer, promising magical stones in exchange for marriage to the Duke, became the only hope for salvation. The father cries out to Yuna in despair, reminding her of her value as the tribe's sole heir. The awareness of her duty to the people gives the girl the determination to accept her difficult fate. The hypocritical kindness of the uncle and the ostentatious hospitality of Julius hide the true motives of this union. The memory of her first meeting with the Duke leaves in Yuna's mind the image of huge and unexpectedly warm palms. Warm thoughts of the warrior hunters, the most respected caste of her people, give the heroine strength. A naive faith in a kind and understanding husband fills Yuna with delight and hope for the future. The idyll collapses in an instant when the heroine stumbles, dropping precious stones in horror. The desperate urge to save the priceless crystal, the key to the survival of her people, is reflected in Yuna's eyes. An unexpected fall leads to the shocking discovery of a secret passage in the wall. A powerful blow leaves the heroine lying unconscious on the cold floor at the entrance to the unknown. Theo's icy gaze meets the girl, who has come to in a mysterious glow. A confused Yuna tries to awkwardly justify her sudden appearance. The heroine tries to smooth over the awkwardness by reintroducing herself to her husband with formal respect. Yuna's beaming smile conceals the fear she has experienced, and the timid hope of establishing contact. The delicate floral scent emanating from the girl suddenly breaks through the memories of the smell of blood. Yuna's refinement and fragility truly strike the cold duke for the first time. Theo mentally pulls himself up short, reminding himself of the formality of marriage and the inadmissibility of any feelings. The incomprehensible weakness that the young man feels for this woman frightens him and makes him isolate himself. The cruel decision to become even colder and drive her away is born in his head as the only salvation. Instead of a shout, an unexpected question about her light clothing escapes his lips, revealing hidden anxiety. An ancient legend about a saint, a messenger of the goddess, emerges from the depths of history. However, official chronicles declare the saint to be just a fiction, a character from myths. The true purpose of the ancient texts was not worship, but rather finding a way to steal her divine power. The letter in the Duke's hands seems like an ominous coincidence, tying together ancient prophecies. The terrible truth is revealed in a letter from the Emperor's spy. Yuna is the saint, and she is being prepared for a ritual sacrifice. Euless reveals a sinister plan to gain the power of the saint. Theo must receive the mark, so Yuna is already being watched. A cunning plan begins to take shape in Theo's mind, realizing his unique position as the only member of his family without a mark. The ancient law of the imperial mark speaks of a sacred union of souls that is sealed only once in a lifetime. The unbreakable bonds of the mark make the choice of a partner a matter of life and death, binding them forever. Anxiety distorts Julius's face as he prepares to tell the story of the grim fate of all the Duke's previous brides. An ominous letter confirms that all the ex-wives have either fled or died, clearing the way for a new plan. The brutal truth is that the Emperor himself was behind the elimination of all the brides. The Duke of the Phoenix Lands, nephew of the Emperor, bears the weight of power and blood relationship on his shoulders. On the battlefield, Theo earned the nickname of a war demon, a merciless beast that instilled primal terror. The loss of his mother at the age of 15 threw the young man into the heat of war, forcing him to accept the title of Duke too early. Any weakness threatens the fall not only of the hero, but of the entire North, which forces him to be merciless. Along with his enemies, Theo buried his own feelings, tearing his soul to pieces with his own hands. The misunderstanding and fear of his own people became his curse, pushing every wife away from life with the monster. Emptiness and indifference to one's fate are reflected in the inverted glasses, drowning out any sadness. Endless pain has become his prison, where the hero simply lets the years slip through his fingers. The Duke's simple announcement of marriage plunges Julius into complete shock and bewilderment. The Master's crazy plan to marry a woman doomed to death seems unthinkable to Julius. Theo's insidious plan becomes clear. Obtaining the mark with Yuna will become his main trump card against the Emperor. An unexpected show of concern for the scantily clad girl breaks through the Duke's icy mask. The cruel decision to scare Yuna into unconsciousness was dictated by a desperate desire to prevent the dissolution of this marriage. Yuna's genuine concern about whether the Duke was cold came as a complete surprise. Theo coldly denies feeling cold, internally convincing himself of the need to appear heartless. The girl's strange look, full not of fear, but of curiosity about his revealing outfit, confuses the young man. The Duke mistakenly believes that his icy image has worked, and now the heroine will definitely be afraid of him. Theo's unexpected offer to turn to him for help seems like a strange manifestation of concern. A smug grin appears on the guy's face, confident that the girl now understands her complete dependence. The threatening whisper about catching a nimble snow-white squirrel should have finally broken his wife's will. Instead of horror, naive interest flashes in Yuna's eyes. Because his chambers are very close, a sudden dizziness causes the girl to stagger, losing her balance in the moonlight. An instinctive impulse makes Theo catch the falling heroine, enveloping her in an unexpectedly strong embrace. The feeling of a fragile body in his hands, like a small bird, awakens unfamiliar feelings in the fierce warrior. Memory helpfully throws up images of previous wives who shied away from his mere touch. The burden of responsibility to his subjects and enemies always forced him to be a horror incarnate, and not a man. The complete lack of fear in this girl's eyes destroys all his ideas and forces him to search for an answer. The memory of their first meeting confirms her guess. Even the bloody hand did not cause her a drop of horror. The futility of trying to appear scary to someone who is not afraid baffles the Duke. A new plan is born in Theo's head, to bind her not with fear, but with a valuable gift that she cannot refuse. A direct question about the magic stones becomes his first step in a new, more cunning game. Confusion grips Yuna as the reminder of her marriage of convenience hurts her, despite its truthfulness. The girl's polite refusal of immediate help demonstrates her pride and completely disarms the Duke. The girl's mysterious refusal of the stones confuses Theo, forcing him to ask her directly about her true desires. The Duke is gripped by a tense anticipation as he prepares to hear a request for annulment or bitter disappointment. A timid hope for a simple acquaintance over breakfast sounds in Yuna's voice, completely stunning the cold Duke. Disbelief and shock distort the face of the young man, unable to comprehend such a simple and humane request. Yuna's beaming smile, full of sincere hope for a shared breakfast, completely disarms the Duke. The simplicity of the girl's desire, asking for neither stones nor soldiers, completely changes Theo's perception of her. The Duke finds the modest request for a shared breakfast both unthinkable and incredibly significant. The strange and inappropriate idea of going for acorns reveals the Duke's complete confusion and dismay. The boy's prolonged silence forces Yuna to apologize, mistaking his shock for a cold refusal. The timid hope of rapprochement fades in the eyes of the girl, faced with an icy wall of silence. The Duke's admission of skipping breakfast comes off as a polite refusal, causing Yuna to let out a quiet sigh of disappointment. An unexpected counteroffer to have lunch together lights a new spark of hope in the heroine's eyes. The chef's urgent replacement at dawn arouses Julius's suspicions, which Theo tries to dispel with a casual answer. The secretary's insightful question about the Duchess's involvement causes Theo to look away in embarrassment. The Duke's embarrassment betrays his true feelings as he tries to justify their shared dinners with the formal status of his wife. Julius's attentive gaze notes his master's obvious and undisguised interest in the new Duchess. The hope for the emergence of true feelings and a normal family life for the Duke is born in the head of his faithful secretary. Julius's cunning advice to send the spy Delkin away to the northern wall is an attempt to protect the budding relationship. The realization of the possibility of getting 3 months without the spy's supervision makes the Duke seriously consider the offer. Yuna's anxious question about leaving for the North Wall breaks the silence during their first dinner together. The hypocritical uncle begins his insidious conversation, hiding his true intentions behind a mask of concern. Delkin's rude question about their wedding night makes Yuna embarrassed. Revealing her innocence, anger distorts the uncle's face at the sight of his niece's naivety, unable to drag the Duke into bed. A cunning plan to manipulate his niece is hatched in Delkin's mind, while Yuna worries about her husband's departure. Her uncle's harsh words about her not being to the Duke's liking hit her where it hurts most, increasing the pressure. The weight of responsibility for the fate of the entire island falls on the shoulders of Yuna, who received orders to immediately seduce the Duke. The vulgar advice to wear something revealing to seduce her husband leaves the innocent girl in complete shock. The disgusting details about the translucent seductive outfit make Yuna shudder with horror. The girl seeks refuge in the cool evening air, trying to recover from the humiliating conversation. Theo's sudden appearance and his grumpy concern for her health become an unexpected relief for Yuna. The Duke's wide, warm cloak envelops the heroine, giving her not only warmth, but also a feeling of unexpected protection. Theo's clumsy attempt to disguise his anxiety with pragmatic reasons only betrays his budding attachment. Yuna's sincere gratitude and the embarrassed blush on her cheeks evoke an unusual warmth in the cold warrior's soul. The Duke's abrupt and thoughtless gesture of adjusting his cloak with a dagger frightens the girl. Yuna's simple resourcefulness in suggesting that we simply roll up our sleeves brings a touch of lightness to the tense situation. The young man's cautious question about meeting Delkin hints at his suspicions and desire to protect Yuna. The cold confidence in Theo's gaze suggests that Delkin's dastardly plan is already fully known to him. The truth is revealed in memory. The Duke heard every humiliating word of his uncle from behind the door. The direct offer to turn only to him now becomes for Yuna a sign of trust and protection from intrigue. The burning blush and the ridiculous excuse of hunger reveal Yuna's extreme embarrassment, caught off guard after the humiliating conversation. Yuna's desperate attempt to justify her stomach growling leaves her feeling a burning shame. Theo's awkward stomach rumbling seduction sends him into a fit of embarrassed laughter. Theo's thoughtful gaze, directed at his own finger, precedes the sudden call for a personal physiotherapist. Personal physiotherapist David is thrilled to receive his first personal call from his master. David's difficult experience as a field doctor on the front lines taught him much about the suffering of knights. The bitter realization that mental wounds are much more difficult to heal than physical ones comes to him amid the groans of the wounded. The Duke's icy indifference to the world around him leaves a lasting and frightening impression on the physiotherapist. David is convinced that the situation is serious, because a man like the Duke would not call him for nothing. David's professional question about his symptoms is met with the Duke's short and alarming answer about the severity of his condition. The anticipation of a difficult diagnosis makes the physiotherapist prepare to record the details of the mysterious illness. The Duke's shocking admission that it is not a curse that torments him, but the process of taming someone, baffles David. The absurd suggestion of a new horse is shattered by Theo's strange answer about taming a long-tailed tit. The enthusiastic description of the white, fluffy, flower-scented tit leaves no doubt that this is the young Duchess. Theo's confession that the little bird has bewitched him causes the poor physiotherapist to completely lose the thread of the conversation. The uncontrollable desire to constantly see her results in a gesture of despair, frightening the confused David. A stormy display of unfamiliar feelings overwhelms Theo, making him passionately desire privacy with his beloved. The unexpected revelation of his feelings for the Duchess becomes a real shock for David, breaking all his ideas. The memory of the emotionless youth on the battlefield highlights the colossal change in the Duke, who showed feelings for the first time. David's final diagnosis, delivered with dramatic pathos, shocks everyone in the office. Professional caution takes over, and David suggests first making sure the magical antidote is necessary. David proposes a clever experiment to test the power of Yuna's charm, but Theo jealously guards his secret. David's cunning plan is to prove to the Duke that his attraction is not caused by magic, but by real feelings. Theo's sly grin betrays his agreement to the experiment, which he sees as an opportunity for his own game. Julius asks the Duke doubtfully if he really believes in the magical charm of the young Duchess. Theo's confidence in David's experiment conceals his own desire to understand the nature of his feelings for Yuna. The upcoming hunt becomes the perfect setting for a devious plan, where Yuna will be presented to high society as bait. The Duke gives clear orders to Julius, completely trusting him to prepare for the risky performance. The unexpected order to provide warm clothing for Yuna reveals the Duke's deep, hidden concern. Theo's uncharacteristic concern for the girl's well-being causes an uneasy premonition in the faithful secretary. The first encounter with the harsh beauty of the northern forests fills Yuna's soul with quiet delight. The girl shares her pure emotions with Julius, not yet suspecting the real purpose of this walk. The polite concern of Julius, who hands over a hot water bottle, seems to the heroine to be a sign of friendly disposition. The secretary points to the hunting lodge, preparing Yuna for a meeting with the aristocrats, who will become unwitting participants in the experiment. The girl is overcome with anxiety before meeting the alien and hostile world of the aristocracy, where her origins could become a reason for ridicule. Yuna's innocent question about an unfamiliar winter pastime highlights her alienation from the world of northern traditions. Yulia's good-natured promise to teach him how to skate becomes a small ray of light in the anxious anticipation. Julius's welcoming gesture, inviting us into the house, conceals the tense atmosphere of the upcoming test. The gazes of the young aristocrats are instantly drawn to the girl who entered, assessing the new wife of their duke. Admiring compliments and a bold gesture from one of the aristocrats become the first test of her influence on those around her. A flurry of enthusiastic exclamations and intrusive attention from all sides makes Yuna feel like a curiosity at the exhibition. Julius's stern reminder of manners is met with only contempt from the impudent aristocrats. The smug guests mockingly deny their guilt, covering up their rudeness with false compliments. The poisonous whisper that Yuna was simply sold for stones becomes a direct and painful insult. Humiliating offers from other aristocrats turn the heroine into a commodity to be bought or conquered. Julius's angry attempt to defend the Duchess's honor is interrupted by a commanding gesture that stops the growing chaos. The icy anger in Theo's gaze, suddenly appearing in the hall, promises a cruel reprisal for insulting his wife. The cold order to take Yuna upstairs makes it clear that the humiliation of the aristocrats will be personal and merciless. A pathetic attempt by one of the guests to turn everything into a joke is shattered by a deaf wall of silence and the unexpected cancellation of the hunt. The Duke's sudden and brutal grip clearly demonstrates that the time for talking is irrevocably gone. A veiled threat to an aristocrat who allegedly accumulated too many stones sounds like a death sentence. A powerful throw sends the insolent man to the floor, sowing panic and primal fear among his terrified friends. Theo's humiliating ultimatum demands from the guilty not only silence, but also the complete surrender of all magical stones. A death threat, delivered with a predatory grin, leaves no doubt about the fate of anyone who dares to disobey. The shameful flight of the aristocrats becomes an object lesson for all who dare to question the Duke's authority. A feeling of deep humiliation and helplessness overwhelms Yuna, who was unable to stand up for herself in the face of insolence. The noise of the brutal massacre reaches the heroine's room, causing anxiety and fear for possible trouble for her husband. Theo's appearance makes the girl's heart clench with fear that he now considers her unworthy of his title. The unexpectedly gentle order to give him her hand completely baffles Yuna, destroying her worst expectations. The discovery of an unnoticed wound on his own hand comes as a real shock to the girl, revealing his attentiveness to her. The display of genuine concern in the form of the healing ointment finally destroys the image of a cold monster, showing a different side of Theo. Theo's gentle touch as he applies the ointment is accompanied by a quiet question, full of unusual concern. Yuna's timid concern that she was the cause of the quarrel reveals her complete ignorance of the Duke's true feelings. Theo's commanding declaration of her high status, second only to himself, gives the girl unexpected confidence. Permission to do as she pleases becomes Yuna's first taste of true freedom in these foreign lands. The title of mistress, pronounced with sincere respect, finally convinces the heroine of the seriousness of his intentions and her new position. Inner strength and self-confidence are born for the first time in the soul of Yuna, who has realized her real power. The sudden realization of their closeness and the power of his words makes the girl feel embarrassed and awkward. Yuna's sharp gesture of pulling her hand away is mistakenly perceived by the Duke as a sign of her desire to escape from this golden cage. An innocent question about a cancelled hunt becomes a way for the heroine to hide her embarrassment and diffuse the situation. Yuna's transformation into an elegant hunting outfit amazes Theo, revealing a whole new, daring side of his wife. The embarrassed Duke tries to hide his admiration behind pragmatic pity for the unused outfit. The new image gives the heroine confidence, erasing her previous fragility and showing her earthly, living beauty. Yuna's anxious question about her appearance is met with Theo's hasty and fervent assurance, delivered head-on. The girl's confident answer about her hunting experience intrigues the Duke, completely destroying his impression of her. Theo's imagination conjures up an image of a cute little animal, incapable of hunting, which only enhances his cuteness and protective instincts. The offer of a simple walk in the forest becomes an expression of his tender care and desire to protect her from the cruelty of the hunt. Yuna's joyful agreement to go for a walk creates a moment of pure, genuine understanding between them. The lack of scent in artificial flowers becomes a symbol of their world, created by magic, but devoid of real warmth. Childish curiosity pushes Yuna forward, and her keen interest in the new world captivates her silent companion. The intoxicating floral scent emanating from the girl's hair completely captivates the Duke, making his heart beat faster. The lack of scent in artificial flowers becomes a metaphor for Theo, allowing him to enjoy the true scent of his companion. The realization that the nature of his attraction is irrelevant brings the Duke inner peace and acceptance of his feelings. Yuna's excited question about ice skating catches Theo off guard, bringing him back to reality from his dream world. The girl's story about her homeland, which has never known winter, evokes in the Duke a mixed feeling of curiosity and slight anxiety. A timid request to teach her how to skate and sled fills Theo's heart with unexpected tenderness. The sudden regret about the lack of a warm cape for the heroine reveals a new, unusual concern for the Duke. A slight reprimand for the girl not wearing the gloves he had given her conceals his genuine concern for her. Yuna's naive admiration for Ulysses' gloves causes Theo's first twinge of jealousy towards his faithful secretary. The heroine's words of praise for Julius's kindness and attentiveness make the Duke frown darkly. Memories of the cunning and ruthless Julius, ready to do anything for victory, do not fit in with the image of a kind helper. The contrast between the brutal warrior of the past and the present attentive secretary leaves Theo acutely perplexed. A jealous guess that it was all about the gift makes the Duke think about his own reciprocal gesture. The desire to prove to Yuna that he, too, can be kind and considerate pushes Theo to search for the perfect gift. In his chambers, the Duke frantically searches for something suitable to impress his young wife. His choice falls on elegant earrings with rubies, in which he sees a reflection of his passion and depth of feelings. Julius's reproaches against the arrogant lords are interrupted by a sudden question from the Duke, puzzled by a new problem. The secretary's praise for his kindness and gifts makes Theo feel embarrassed, because the real reason for his generosity is jealousy. The realization that the Duke is going to give Yuna his late mother's earrings leaves Julius in complete shock. The The secretary's desperate plea not to give up the only memory of his mother is shattered by Theo's cold determination. The desire to give Yuna something truly meaningful outweighs all arguments, because for him, she has become more precious than any relics. The determination to give the gift immediately takes hold of Theo, who no longer wants to delay his first step towards her. Julius's caustic teasing only spurred the Duke on, and he walked resolutely towards his wife. Theo's sudden appearance in her chambers takes Yuna by surprise, wearing only a light outfit similar to the robes of her homeland. The sight of the half-naked girl makes the Duke flush, causing him to question the nature of this sudden attraction. A burning shame grips Yuna, who is forced to cover herself with her hands in her familiar but so revealing for this world pajamas. The imperious order to see her from now on only in this outfit sounds like a compliment to the girl, hiding the Duke's true desires. Noticing Yuna's embarrassment, Theo suggests coming back later, giving her time to recover. The girl's hasty assurance that she is not embarrassed betrays her desire not to miss this rare moment of intimacy. Yuna's generous permission to take whatever she wants from the wardrobe becomes another sign of his affection. The tender image of Yuna in a fluffy robe, reminiscent of cotton candy, causes a fit of tenderness in Theo. The precious box in the Duke's hands becomes a symbol of his new, still awkward, but sincere feeling. Yuna's timid question about whether this gift is really meant for her reveals her lack of faith in her own happiness. A vague uneasiness grips the heroine, who received earrings as a gift, but does not understand what is now expected of her. The girl's sincere and radiant gratitude for the gift becomes Theo's greatest and most desired reward. A light touch on her arm and a warm acknowledgement that he is pleased with her reaction closes the distance between them. A budding hope for a normal and happy married life lights up the thoughts of Yuna as she sits next to her husband. A quiet conversation by the fireplace about her health seems like the first step towards the real intimacy her heart so longs for. The ideal of a shared breakfast in the garden becomes a familiar and welcome routine for Yuna after a week. The appearance of the new personal maid, Ray, with a tired and indifferent face, brings a note of anxiety into the morning harmony. Memories of the difficult fate that forced her to go to war in place of her brother at the age of 12 explain Ray's coldness. The contempt and ridicule from the other knights only strengthened Ray's strong character. The personal mentorship of the stern Duke became the only chance for the young warrior to prove herself. Her bravery and dedication on the battlefield earned Ray the well-deserved title of Honorary Knight of the Empire. The pain of her master's alienation, unable to share the joy of victory, darkened every triumph. Loyalty to her master led Ray to leave her military career for a lifetime of service to his family. The tragic fate of 3 previous wives makes the faithful servant look with concern at the naive Yuna. Yuna's unexpected kindness and sincere gratitude melt the ice in the stern maid's heart. A timid hope for happiness for her master is born in the soul of a devoted servant. The displeasure on the Duke's face causes the faithful servant to burst into anger and worry for her mistress. Theo's icy silence in response to Yuna's innocent compliment sends a wave of righteous anger through Ray. The Duke's cold statement about his dislike of flowers causes real shock and indignation in Ray and Julius. A sudden desire to be alone under the pretext of work becomes a way for the Duke to escape from an uncomfortable conversation. A bitter disappointment overwhelms Yuna, certain that she was the cause of his bad mood. An unexpected idea dawns on Yuna, who decides to act to melt the ice in her husband's heart. A crazy shock therapy plan for the Duke sends Julius and Ray into a full-blown panic attack. An urgent call, under the pretext of an urgent problem, becomes part of a cunning plan to bring the spouses closer together. An unsuspecting Theo agrees to take a short break, falling right into his resourceful wife's trap. Curiosity forces Julius to intervene, wanting to understand the true reason for the Duke's generous gift. The terrible truth that the earrings he gave her belonged to Theo's late mother hits Yuna like an icy shock. Ulisa's sad confirmation finally reveals to Yuna the full depth and seriousness of her husband's feelings. The knowledge that the precious gift holds the memory of Theo's mother fills Yuna with guilt and awe. Yuna's secret whisper about her plan takes Julius by surprise, but arouses his keen interest. Theo's suspicious look and direct question to Ray reveal his intuitive understanding that the maid is up to something. The accusation of aloofness forces Theo to pretend that he does not understand what his faithful servant is saying. Ray's innocent question about whether his mistress had offended him in any way becomes a precise blow to the Duke's sore pride. The maid's sharp attack on his isolation and inability to communicate makes Theo think about his behavior for the first time. The Duke's hesitant question about whether Yuna mentioned the earrings reveals his hidden anxiety and hope. Ray's confirmation that these are the late Duchess's ruby earrings only adds to his confusion. Theo's logical assumption that Yuna is guarding the jewel becomes the only explanation for her behavior for him. Ray's sharp remark that he should apologize to his wife completely unsettles the Duke. Yuna's sudden appearance interrupts their tense conversation, leaving Theo feeling like a guilty schoolboy. The out-of-breath girl catches up with her husband to return to him a gift that is too precious to her. Returning the box, Yuna explains that she now knows the true value of these earrings to his family. The weight of knowing how dear this memory is to her husband prevents Yuna from accepting such a significant gift. The Duke's sincere apology for the trouble he had caused her showed his remorse and unwillingness to hurt her. Theo's determination to keep the earrings with her, no matter what, demonstrates the depth of his feelings. Yuna's desperate cry that she simply can't put them on introduces a note of comical misunderstanding into their conversation. The girl's naive admission that she simply doesn't have pierced ears comes as a complete surprise to the Duke. The sight of the cute, untouched ears and the small birthmark causes Theo to experience an attack of uncontrollable embarrassment and tenderness. A ridiculous suggestion to pierce her ears for earrings is met with a sincere compliment from Theo, who considers her ears beautiful even without decoration. Yuna's naive request for help with getting her ears pierced takes an unexpected turn in their tense conversation. The girl's calm confidence in her desire to wear earrings dispels the Duke's last doubts. A funny story about a mark left by a father turns an awkward moment into a touching memory. Words of trust, spoken with childish spontaneity, disarm the stern Duke, causing his heart to tremble. Theo's gentle and focused gaze before the procedure begins fills the room with tense anticipation. The quiet warning of pain and the promise to do everything quickly reveal his hidden concern and excitement. His anxious question about Yuna's blood and well-being after the piercing shows his genuine concern. A hasty attempt to call a doctor is interrupted by the girl's bold assurance that she is ready to be patient. The childish delight and determination to see things through to the end, despite the pain, brings a warm smile to the Duke's face. Yuna's shining gaze, adorned with her mother's earrings, makes Theo freeze in silent admiration. A sincere promise to carefully guard the precious gift becomes a symbol of her devotion for the Duke. The mention of his mother evokes in Theo's soul a long-forgotten but acute pain of loss. Long-suppressed emotions and memories of his mother overwhelm the Duke, taking him back to the past. The image of his dying mother lying in the snow flashes painfully through his memory. The ruby earring in his mother's ear becomes the last bright detail imprinted in his childhood memory. The parting words of Karen Rose, the late Duchess of Phoenix, ring in his ears like a testament. The memory of his warrior mother, who always put her duty to the people above her own life, fills him with pride. The desperate pleas of young Theo, bending over his dying mother, still echo in his soul. The feeling of guilt that her death was not in vain becomes his main driving force. A vow to become stronger to protect her legacy transforms the young boy into a ruthless warrior who knows no defeat. The earrings, removed from his mother's cold body, become Theo's only and painful reminder of the past. A wave of long-forgotten grief washes over the Duke at the sight of the family heirloom, awakening old wounds. Yuna's shining smile, adorned with earrings, does not bring relief, but only aggravates his inner pain. The girl's touching story about her affectionate nickname and the joy of being called by her name fills the atmosphere with warmth. Theo's offer to call him simply by his first name becomes a timid step towards real intimacy, erasing formal boundaries. Mutual steps towards each other, such as an expensive gift and simply calling each other by name, light a spark of hope in their hearts. The image of their future life together, full of love and tenderness, appears before them as a beautiful vision. The dream of a happy family and the birth of a child becomes the main and most desired goal for Yuna and Theo. A conversation in the garden about magical stones that support eternal flowering brings the heroes back to reality. The lack of scent in the artificial flowers gives Ray a reason to reflect sadly on the nature of this place. Yuna's enthusiastic tale of the sweet scents and fluttering bees of her homeland arouses the maid's keen interest. A timid hope for a joint trip to Rue Island lights up Yuna's face, still unaware of the cruel prohibitions. The memory of her uncle's strict orders, not to mention home, casts a shadow on her rosy dreams. The difficult realization that everything is not so simple darkens the mood of the girl faced with harsh reality. Thinking about the last letter sent home makes Yuna feel anxious and slightly embarrassed. The memory of the enthusiastic lines about the Duke's courage and beauty makes her blush with shame. A burning embarrassment gripped Yuna as she thought about what she wrote in her last letter. Thoughtfulness and homesickness do not escape the attentive gaze of the faithful maid. A funny scene with the Duke hiding in the bushes causes Ray to be perplexed and laugh. Theo's awkward attempt to remain unnoticed fails completely, causing only a smile from the maid and the Duchess. Ray's awkward attempt to distract the Duchess from Theo's hiding place only adds to the comical nature of the situation. Yuna's thoughtfulness about writing a new letter to her father and the need to choose her words carefully reveals her homesickness. Hiding in the bushes, Theo painfully realizes how much his young wife misses her homeland. A jealous fear of losing Yuna grips the Duke at the thought that she might regret her choice. Theo's determination to prevent her from leaving forces him to emerge from his ridiculous hiding place. Ray's ridiculous excuse about a big mole only leaves Yuna perplexed until the sound of branches cracking is heard behind her. The fear of annulment shatters the fragile idol of their relationship, causing the Duke to panic. The ironclad certainty that Yuna is now his wife gives Theo the strength to take decisive action. Deep thoughtfulness grips the Duke, who is looking for a way to keep his wife close forever. 2 months of living together fly by in the blink of an eye, leaving only warm memories in Yuna's soul. Observing his wife's daily life, Theo sees how she gradually gets used to her new home. Yuna's words about the impossibility of turning back time are taken by the Duke as a hint of her desire to leave. The thought of the long separation required to travel to Rue Island becomes unbearable for Theo. The brilliant idea of recreating her homeland right in the duchy dawns on Theo, who sees this as the only way out. The realization that the marriage was concluded for the sake of the stones becomes the starting point for the Duke's plan. The simple and logical idea that even more stones will hold her seems to him the ideal solution. The icy determination to destroy anyone who tries to take Yuna from him is reflected in his eyes. The awkward remark that she shouldn't have walked around his office betrays Theo's desire to see her more often. Yuna's beaming smile and her concern for his work cause the Duke to feel an uncontrollable bout of embarrassment. The realization that the cute bird fluttering nearby is interfering with his work comes to Theo with slight annoyance and boundless tenderness. Yuna's timid request to look at her intrigues Theo, distracting him from his dark thoughts. The girl's graceful hands, carefully holding a green sprout, captivate the Duke with their fragility and tenderness. The offer to smell the leaves found in the garden becomes a way for Yuna to share a piece of her world with her husband. Theo's reluctant agreement only conceals his curiosity and desire to get closer to his mysterious wife. The Duke's warm breath tickling her fingers sends a wave of embarrassment and sweet trepidation through Yuna. The healing properties of young ash leaves, which warm the body, become a symbol of care and home comfort. The joy of finding a familiar plant in someone else's garden fills Yuna's heart with warmth and memories of home. A touching story about how her father would brew this tea for her when he had a cold reveals her deep connection to her family. The sadness in Yuna's eyes as she remembers home makes Theo once again doubt her desire to stay. The girl's request for a trip is perceived by the Duke as confirmation of his worst fears, and he decides to act preemptively. Theo's bewilderment at hearing that she really wants to leave is mixed with panic and fear of loss. The desire to be by her side wherever she goes outweighs all the Duke's fears and doubts. A spontaneous and decisive agreement to go with her becomes Theo's only way to maintain control of the situation. The hasty order to pack things for a long journey leaves Yuna completely perplexed. The girl's attempt to stop packing and explain her true desire runs into a wall of misunderstanding. The simple explanation that it was just a trip to the city market comes as a real revelation to Theo. An enthusiastic story about the delicacies sold at the market finally clarifies the situation. The realization of his absurd mistake and hasty conclusions makes the Duke freeze in shock. The sunny morning of the next day promises a new, adventurous chapter in their life together. Ray's caring instructions before entering the crowded marketplace highlight the value and fragility of her new mistress. Julius's polite invitation to join the crew marks the beginning of a long-awaited trip to the city market. The thought that her busy husband finally found time for her fills Yuna with quiet joy. Relief and happiness that they are going together illuminate the face of the girl who was afraid of being rejected. The timid hope that he will take her hand in the crowd makes Yuna's heart flutter in anticipation. The appearance of the elegantly dressed Theo and his apologies for being late only increase her anxiety. A cute winter outfit transforms Yuna from a fragile bird into a fluffy rabbit in the Duke's eyes, evoking tenderness. The thoughtful question about his employment shows how much Yuna values his time spent with her. The desire to maintain the image of an important man in front of his wife makes Theo brag a little about his busyness. The Duke's meticulous preparation for a simple trip to the market reveals his desire to impress Yuna. A trip to the city becomes an opportunity for the girl to find the necessary equipment for drying medicinal leaves. A sudden jolt and panic from the servants interrupt their peaceful journey, adding a note of alarm to the idyll. Theo's strong embrace, protecting her from the blow, gives Yuna a feeling of security and unexpected closeness. Julius's piercing cry, catching them in an awkward position, makes the Duke go cold with horror. The certainty that the headphones saved Yuna from screaming allows Theo to maintain his composure. The cheerful laughter of the girl, who decided to play along with her husband, comes as a complete surprise to him. Relief that the awkward moment has passed allows Julius to give the order to continue on. Embarrassment and the desire to hold hands again overwhelm Theo, who has missed the perfect moment for intimacy. Knowing that this is her chance gives Yuna the courage and determination to act first. The awkward silence in the carriage after the incident makes Julius suspect a possible quarrel. The deserted market square, without a soul in sight, comes as a complete and unpleasant surprise to the arriving couple. Yuna's childish delight at the sight of a tea shop brings a touch of life to the dreary atmosphere of the empty market. The thought that the purchase won't take much time becomes little consolation for Julius. The secretary's stern reminder of the 2-hour time limit underscores the seriousness of their situation. The crowd of angry townspeople waiting for the market to open becomes a visible result of the Duke's willfulness. The unusual sight of the happy couple evokes in Julius a mixed feeling of surprise and quiet joy. The merchant's ingratiating greeting betrays his fear of the powerful Duke, who has disturbed their peace. The whispers of frightened townspeople follow the couple, creating an aura of alienation and fear around them. Yuna's naive suggestion to visit another tent completely ignores the tense atmosphere around her. The fear and trembling in the merchant's eyes becomes an unpleasant reminder to Theo of his reputation. A slight regret about the closed market is mixed with satisfaction that he was able to provide his wife with privacy. The fear that Yuna will become afraid of him makes Theo keep his distance, afraid of breaking the fragile trust. Yuna's innocent request to try a local delicacy becomes her way of showing the weakness that Ray spoke of. The girl's delight at the variety of fruit on skewers becomes another discovery in her character for Theo. Panic grips the young saleswoman at the thought of being punished for not fulfilling her mother's order. Yuna's beaming smile and her request for help with the choice completely disarm the frightened girl. Yuna's funny story about her family's food preferences brings a touch of homeliness to the tense atmosphere. The question addressed to Theo becomes for him an unexpected sign of trust and involvement in her life. The Duke's generous gesture of buying up all the sweets becomes a way for him to show his care and generosity. The disbelief in the merchant's eyes at the sight of the generous and smiling Duke breaks all their stereotypes. The image of a young man in love with his beautiful wife completely changes the townspeople's perception of the ruthless ruler. Yuna's simple gratitude and a small treat become a real gift for the frightened merchant. Theo's attentive gaze and his concern for the girl's pallor betray his deep affection. Yuna's unexpected offer to watch the shop becomes an expression of her kindness and compassion. Fear of the Duke makes the young merchant refuse to help, but the promise of a quick return calms her down. A vague malaise comes over Theo as he stands behind the counter, but he cannot understand its cause. The desire to protect Yuna from upset forces the Duke to give Julius the order to immediately open the market gates. The sudden appearance of a crowd at the market delights Yuna, while Theo hides his little trick. The arrival of their first customer, a small boy, becomes a real event for their impromptu trade. Yuna's kind offer to treat the child evokes wild delight and gratitude in the boy. The timid request of a father and son for a peach treat fills the scene with an atmosphere of warmth and family comfort. The father's shy gratitude for the treat becomes Theo and Yuna's best reward for their kindness. A stroll through the evening market, filled with quiet joy, becomes their first real date. Yuna's naive assumption that people are simply afraid of his high status only makes Theo smile. The girl's bold offer to try the delicacy becomes a way for her to break down the wall of alienation. A slight shyness and the first bite of a strawberry from her hand become a moment of pure, unadulterated happiness for Theo. Yuna's sincere joy and her desire to repeat the walk make the Duke's heart melt with tenderness. The long-awaited touch of her hand, taking his, becomes the fulfillment of Theo's secret desire. A wave of embarrassment and hope overwhelms the Duke at the thought that her feelings might be mutual. The desire to celebrate this important moment with a special wine reveals the depth of his emotions. Julius's report on the complete fulfillment of the order to buy up all the food in the market reveals the true reason for the Duke's generosity. Julius's report on the townspeople's gratitude for the Duke's generous gesture becomes the beginning of a new conversation. Ray's cunning plan, which presented the trip to the market as the Duchess's concern for the people, bears fruit. Disturbing news about Count Delkin's contacts with the High Priest of the Temple of Daphne puts Theo on edge. Studying the spy's report plunges the Duke into a world of intrigue and secret conspiracies. The mysterious Eye of the Storm becomes the key to unlocking the location of the goddess's main temple. The legend of an impassable snowstorm hiding the path to the shrine takes on an ominous meaning. The impregnable temple of the goddess Daphne, located on the top of a mountain, becomes a center of attraction for dark forces. Only select priests, including the High Priest, have access to the Holy of Holies, which holds ancient secrets. Delkin's goal becomes clear. He seeks information from the High Priest about the saint, who is Yuna. The High Priest's confirmation that Yuna is the saint leaves no doubt about the impending threat. Ancient texts describe the saint as a messenger of the goddess, pure and radiant like the sun. The red mark on the ear becomes the main identification mark by which one can recognize a true saint. The prophecy states that with the revelation of her essence, her purpose will become clear to the whole world. The appearance of the mark on Yuna after coming of age and the subsequent change of seasons on the island confirm her divine nature. A mysterious stone with an inscription in the Ru language, found near the Eye of the Storm, becomes another important clue. The word protection, engraved on the stone, hints at the hidden power and purpose of the saint. The memory of his mother's death and the question of the mysterious stone force Theo to relive the tragedy of the past. The decision to contact the residents of Rua becomes the first step for Ulysse in investigating this complex case. Out of breath, Julius, catching up with his sister, brings a touch of family bustle into the gloomy atmosphere of the castle. The appearance of Mylene, Julius's younger sister, promises new twists in this story full of secrets and intrigue. Julius's tired grumbling about his sedentary job only elicits a contemptuous smirk from his sister. Julius's embarrassed admission that the new Duchess is kind and sensitive arouses Mylene's keen interest. Rumors of a recent romantic date in the city only confirm Mylene's suspicions about budding feelings. Julius's stern reminder to keep quiet in the castle reflects the seriousness of palace intrigue. Mylene's offended remark that she shouldn't be taken for a fool shows her independent and strong character. The appearance of a new maid, introduced by Ulysse, comes as a pleasant surprise to Yuna. Yuna's warm and friendly greeting immediately puts the new maid at ease. Mylene's timid and serious presentation reveals her excitement and desire to do her job well. Yuna's sincere gratitude for her future work finally melts the new maid's heart. Silent admiration for the Duchess's beauty makes Mylene mentally scold her brother for his silence. Mylene and Ray's eagerness to help their new mistress settle in creates an atmosphere of care and support around Yuna. Yuna's calm permission for Ray to return to her duties shows her respect for the work of others. The new maid's sincere compliment about the Duchess's irresistibility makes Yuna smile sheepishly. Comparing Yuna's hair to the first snowfall and the naive assumption that she is often told, this betrays Mylene's naivety. The new maid's sly advice about taking a walk with the Duke during the first snowfall takes Yuna by surprise. An enthusiastic story about a sign that promises long-lasting love and happiness lights a spark of hope in Yuna's eyes. Comparing the romance of the first snowfall with the beauty of the Duchess herself becomes the best compliment for Mylene. Thoughts of love and happiness promised by the omen make Yuna plunge into a world of sweet dreams. The image of her and Theo's future, full of tenderness and love, like a real spouse, inspires the girl. The question of local entertainment becomes Yuna's first step toward understanding and accepting her new world. Yuna's innocent question about local entertainment becomes the starting point for Mylene's cunning plan. Yuna's shy desire to spend more time with her husband, despite his busy schedule, reveals her deep feelings. The realization of the Duchess's sincere love for her stern master makes Mylene feel sympathy for her. Her brother's lack of dating experience pushes Mylene to take a decisive step, to become Yuna's love advisor. An enthusiastic proposal to compile a list of festivals and attractions becomes the beginning of their little conspiracy. The discussion of plans for furnishing the empty rooms is interrupted by the sudden appearance of the Duke. An unexpected meeting in the garden takes everyone by surprise, but becomes the occasion for a short but important conversation. Theo's embarrassed offer to go for a walk together is dashed by the girls' prearranged plans. The belated introduction of Mylene as Julius's younger sister adds a touch of formality to their conversation. Yuna's question about the mysterious White Tower awakens in the Duke a desire to share local legends. The story of how the first snow covering the roof of the tower signaled the beginning of winter enchants the girl. Yuna's excited question about the first snowfall makes her mentally plan the perfect date. Theo's icy confession of hatred for snow and the color white hits Yuna like a cold shower. Malin's internal struggle, mentally begging her mistress to agree with the Duke, escalates the situation. The Duke's sharp and cold answer, that there is no such thing as good snow, hurts the naive girl deeply. Offended and insulted, Yuna, not wanting to tolerate his coldness, abruptly turns around and leaves. The hasty flight of the confused maids leaves Theo alone, completely perplexed by what has happened. Realizing how sharply she reacted to his words makes the Duke wonder about the reason for her offense. Julius's appearance with a report interrupts his heavy thoughts, returning him to harsh realities. The alarming news that Yuna has not left the tower all day makes the Duke's heart clench with worry. The Duke's sharp question about why Yuna has stopped walking reveals his hidden concern. Fear of his master's wrath forces Julius to choose his words carefully so as not to make the situation worse. The awareness of his duty to tell the truth outweighs his fear, and Julius prepares for a difficult conversation. The explanation that the Duchess avoids him for fear of encountering hostility puzzles Theo. Julius's logical chain of reasoning about the connection between Yuna's hatred of snow and her white hair infuriates the Duke. The explosion of anger and the complete denial of such, in his opinion, absurd logic show the full depth of his misunderstanding. Julius's certainty that it was his words about the snow that caused the offense finally makes Theo think. The Duke's furious outburst and his reluctance to acknowledge the connection between his words and her feelings reveal his internal struggle. Theo's tender remark about the warm shade of Yuna's hair, which distinguishes it from the cold snow, becomes the first step towards reconciliation. Julius's humility in the face of his master's stubbornness and his attempts to smooth over the conflict go unnoticed. The secretary's hasty flight leaves the Duke alone with his thoughts, full of doubts and regrets. The determination to immediately talk to Yuna and fix everything pushes Theo to an impulsive act. The Duke's appearance on the threshold of her room comes as a complete surprise to Yuna. The desire to explain and dispel misunderstandings shines through in his every gesture and word. The funny sight of Yuna, wrapped in a fluffy blanket, makes Theo involuntarily smile and feel tenderness. Comparing her to a fluffy owl eases the tension between them a little. The girl's refusal to remove the blanket and her desire to hide her face reveal her deep resentment. Yuna's direct and painful question about whether he doesn't like her hair because it resembles snow leaves, Theo stumped. The sudden and unexpected gesture with which he helps her remove the blanket becomes the beginning of their frank conversation. Yuna's sincere admission that he had always thought her hair was very beautiful comes as a real revelation. Theo's sincere apology and his request to never miss a walk become a real balm for Yuna's soul. The girl's embarrassed muttering that she had misunderstood everything betrays her relief and joy. The Duke's admission that he is constantly embarrassed in front of her causes Yuna genuine bewilderment. The memory of his brutal first meeting and his attempt to keep her by force makes Theo feel guilty. The shocking revelation that his mother died because of the snow hits Yuna like an icy revelation. A bitter tale of a lack of magic stones and freezing inhabitants reveals the true cause of the tragedy. The kingdom's treacherous promise to lift restrictions on the import of stones in exchange for research into the Eye of the Storm turned out to be a trap. Yuna's innocent question about the mysterious Eye of the Storm sends Theo reeling from painful memories. The description of a deadly place where snowstorms rage explains the horror and hopelessness of that mission. Yuna admires his mother's courage in going into the heart of the storm for her people. The difficult admission that he himself found her lifeless body becomes the culmination of his confession. The hatred of the snow, which became the cause of her death and his eternal pain, finds its bitter explanation. The regret that he was too young to go looking for her still haunts the Duke. The gentle touch of the earrings and the quiet admission that they bring him comfort reveal his vulnerability. A warm smile and words that everything is fine become a sign of his forgiveness and acceptance for Yuna. Yuna's sudden and bold offer to have a drink together comes as a complete surprise to Theo. The girl's naive belief that alcohol lifts the mood only evokes a slight grin from the Duke. The playful idea that adults sometimes need a drink for courage hints at her hidden desires. The memory of the only glass of wine drunk on the ship reveals her complete inexperience in such matters. Theo's acceptance of her bold proposal and the anticipation of a night full of courage promise a new turn in their relationship. The thought that he had taken too long to get ready made Theo doubt his resolve. Mild dissatisfaction with his physical form becomes a reason for self-criticism for the Duke. The playful compliment about the champagne being as pink as her eyes betrays his romantic mood. The sight of Yuna sleeping, who never waited for him, causes a fit of tenderness and slight disappointment in the Duke. The assumption that she was tired after cleaning the tower filled his heart with a feeling of guilt and admiration. The desire to simply watch her sleep becomes Theo's excuse to stay close. The beauty of the sleeping Yuna, seemingly so defenseless and beautiful, completely disarms the stern warrior. The irresistible desire to touch her, to remove a thin strand of hair from her face, becomes a real test for him. An accidental touch to her cheek and the girl's response make him freeze in anticipation. The panic fear that he might be going too far is mixed with the intoxicating sensation of her breath. The awkward position and her trusting closeness make Theo feel both awkward and aroused. The inner fire and the question of why she doesn't push him away ignite a long-forgotten passion in him. Yuna's slight awakening and sleepy appearance bring the Duke back from the world of his wildest fantasies. The girl's embarrassed apology for falling asleep only brings a warm smile to Theo's face. The false assurance that he had only waited for a short time became his way of concealing his long-lasting admiration. The offer to try sweet wine becomes Theo's way of continuing their interrupted evening. Malin's sudden appearance with a loud greeting shatters their fragile intimacy. The maid's shocking question about whether they are having a good morning puts both of them in an extremely awkward position. Theo's attempt to hide his embarrassment with a lame excuse about a long night only makes the situation worse. The decision to postpone the wine tasting and take the embarrassed Yuna away becomes the Duke's only way out of the awkward situation. Yuna's bold offer to have dinner together becomes her way of getting their relationship back on track. The playful promise to open the wine she chose with such care shows her desire to move on. Malin's sincere apology for her mistake and fear of the Duke's wrath betray her loyalty. The maid's childish fear of the Duke's possible disfavor only evokes a warm, reassuring smile from Yuna. An innocent question about Theo's mother becomes Yuna's attempt to understand the depth of his pain and suffering. Malin's story of Karen Rose's tragic yet heroic fate only confirms her greatness in Yuna's eyes. The image of the desperate young Duke, who sets out alone to search for his mother, evokes deep sympathy in the girl. The general terror and panic that gripped the castle as Theo charged into the heart of the storm highlights his reckless courage. The miraculous rescue of the exhausted Duke from the icy captivity becomes a turning point in his fate. The tragic loss of his mother and the horror he experienced forever change Theo's character, turning him into a cold and withdrawn warrior. Knowing that she would hate snow too if she were in his place helps Yuna fully understand and accept his pain. A timid request to sit next to Yuna at dinner becomes the first step towards restoring their fragile peace. Theo's casual remark that cleaning is not the Duchess's responsibility shows his desire to care for her. Yuna's simple and logical explanation that she will use these rooms herself disarms the Duke. The casually thrown-out phrase that among these rooms there will be their common one takes Theo by surprise. A playful remark about the coziness of a windowless room becomes a bold hint for Yuna about their future closeness. The Duke's imagination paints tempting pictures of their life together in a cozy room, igniting passion in him. Theo admires Yuna's courage and directness in not being afraid to take the first steps. The funny idea that a windowless room will become their shelter from the hated snow makes everyone smile. A playful offer to hide from every snowfall in their shared room becomes a bold and promising flirtation for Yuna. Theo's joking remark that the tower is not only a place to sit, but also to walk, lightens the mood. Yuna's direct question about whether he feels sad when it snows shows her deep empathy. A sincere desire to get to know each other better and avoid misunderstandings becomes the leitmotif of their frank conversation. Theo's warm and tender response about his mutual desire to get to know her better makes Yuna's heart flutter with happiness. The girl's story about the early loss of her mother and life with her father becomes her first step towards true candor. The memory of her silent father and the ritual fire she lit to find out about her mother touches the Duke. Yuna's suggestion that the crackling fire reminded her father of her mother reveals her sensitive and vulnerable soul. The thought that being open will help them become closer makes Theo raise a glass to their future. The dream of a winter evening by the fire with Theo gives birth to hope for true family warmth in Yuna's soul. The timid thought of whether she could truly become his wife fills her heart with trepidation and excitement. The proposal to raise a toast to the arrival of winter becomes for them a symbol of farewell to past grievances. The sudden appearance of Julius in the midst of their romantic dinner interrupts the fragile idyll. Theo's irritation at the secretary's untimely arrival is mixed with anxiety over the breaking news. The news of a guest from Rue Island, calling himself Azarim, leaves Yuna in complete shock. The girl's excited cry and her mention of her friend add a note of joyful anticipation to the tense atmosphere. Yuna's request to meet the guest is met with full understanding and support from her husband. Theo's slight bewilderment at the fact that his wife is friends with a man reveals his slight jealousy. The arrival of Azarim, the heir to the Apan tribe, becomes a long-awaited meeting for Yuna with a piece of her past. A strong and joyful hug from a childhood friend becomes a real breath of fresh air for a girl. Theo has mixed feelings about his friend's enthusiastic and carefree conversation about how he got here. Uncontrollable jealousy and anger flare up in Theo's soul at the sight of his wife's casual embrace with another man. The young woman's naive presentation of her childhood friend only adds fuel to the fire of jealousy of the angry Duke. Theo's predatory grin and icy gaze do not bode well for the unsuspecting guest. Azarima's cold and familiar greeting becomes the last straw for Theo. Yuna's hasty apology for her friend's informal communication betrays her fear of her husband's wrath. Azarima's sarcastic remark about a more appropriate greeting only increases the tension between the men. Not wanting to embarrass Yuna, Theo restrains his anger and extends his hand for a formal handshake. The brutal grip that leaves a mark on his opponent's hand becomes a silent manifestation of Theo's rage. The shock and pain on Azarim's face from the Duke's unexpected aggression becomes a small victory for Theo. Delcon's ridiculous comparison of Theo with a wardrobe and a bear makes Yuna laugh and bewildered. The Duke's playful smile and his question about what they are talking about hide his true feelings behind a mask of politeness. Theo's irritated demand to speak the common language becomes his way of interrupting their intimate conversation. Azarima's careless question about food and his complaint about hunger become the perfect opportunity for Theo to prove himself. The decision to use the guest's familiarity as a chance to show himself as a generous husband is born in the head of the jealous Duke. Theo's smug smile and his offer to feed the hungry guest hide his true intentions. Yuna's thoughtful question about the weather in their home village becomes the beginning of a long-awaited conversation with a friend. Azarima's reassuring words that everything is fine with them bring the girl great relief. The guest's astonished question about whether the food has already run out shows his unaccustomedness to such abundance. Azarima's attempt to take food from Yuna's plate is met with a cold and sharp protest from the jealous Duke. The guest's brazen attempt to send Theo away in order to be alone with Yuna becomes the apogee of his insolence. Theo's cold and decisive declaration that he will stay leaves Azarima with no chance. The order for more becomes the Duke's way of showing who is boss and continuing his feast. The irritation of having to share dinner with an impudent rival is mixed with the desire not to lose face in front of Yuna. Yuna's answer that she missed everyone comes as little consolation to Azarim. Yuna's childhood friend's sweet words about how he missed her only make her feel embarrassed and awkward. Theo's abrupt intervention, interrupting their intimate conversation, shows his growing irritation. Yuna's story about her new friends and helpers becomes her way of showing that she is not alone. The image of the loyal and always ready to help Julius only strengthens the contrast with the insolent behavior of the guest. A gentle touch on her hand and a grateful look at her husband become a silent confession of her feelings for Yuna. Theo's promise to take care of all her desires becomes another blow to Azarim's pride. The guest's predatory smile and his words about the Duke's kindness hide his true intentions and mistrust. Azarim's direct statement that Yuna should have married him becomes an open challenge to Theo. The icy and contemptuous definition of their traditions as bullshit completely infuriates the guest. Yuna's reproach to her friend for raising the topic shows her reluctance to stir up the past and offend her husband. The confusion and bewilderment on Azarim's face from Yuna's sharp reaction comes as a complete surprise to him. The ridiculous excuse that he simply wanted to test the Duke's reaction sounds extremely unconvincing. Yuna's irritation with her friend's inappropriate games and tests reaches its limit. The desire to be a good wife to Theo and the awkwardness created by her friend make her feel guilty. Azurima's belated apology and gratitude for Yuna's care sound like an attempt to smooth over the conflict. Theo's commanding and confident statement that caring for his spouse is his duty puts an end to this dispute. The offer to finish the meal and see the guest out becomes Theo's way of getting rid of the uninvited rival. Azurima's innocent desire to stay and chat all night long only increases the jealous Duke's irritation. Theo's cold clarification that the guest rooms are in the main building turns into a polite but firm refusal. Azurima's brazen attempt to ask Yuna for a place to stay for the night is met with an icy and unyielding refusal from the Duke. Yuna's beaming smile and her thoughtful offer to rest become a bitter reminder for Azurim of his loss. Blind rage and a desire to immediately get rid of the impudent bastard overwhelm Theo, who is left alone. Yuna's late visit to his chambers comes as a complete surprise to the angry Duke. A small gift of ash leaf tea becomes a silent expression of her care for the girl. The desire for him to be the first to try the healing drink reveals the full depth of her affection. Yuna's gratitude for his favor to Azurim and her naive belief in friendship leave Theo with mixed feelings. A thoughtful remark about her light clothing and an offer to try tea become the Duke's way of hiding his embarrassment. Theo's sudden question about where she was going in the middle of the night interrupts their quiet and cozy conversation. Azurim's icy reminder that to him she is not a duchess, but simply Yuna, becomes an open challenge. The realization that Azurim has shown his true colors makes Theo prepare for a serious conversation. The guest's brazen statement that he came to see Yuna completely infuriates the Duke. Azurima's provocative question about when he will return home becomes the last straw for Theo. The knowledge that he must stay longer to look after his girlfriend sounds like a direct threat. Theo's icy reminder of his duty as an heir and the inadmissibility of a long absence becomes his counterattack. Azurim's brazen admission that he became heir only to marry Yuna becomes a declaration of war. The poisonous reproach that Yuna had to marry him and the accusation of controlling by force finally tear off the masks. Azurim's angry accusation that it was they who proposed marriage in exchange for the stones becomes a last attempt to defend themselves. Theo's cold and contemptuous agreement that their people have accepted this proposal disarms the insolent guest. The realization that his own people sent Yuna here for the stones makes Azurim feel betrayed. Theo's icy question about why his rival is whining now that his plan to let Yuna go has failed leaves Azurim stumped. The bitter accusation that the Duke is using their need as a pretext to keep Yuna betrays the guest's desperation. Theo's sharp attack on whether Yuna knows about his true feelings is a blow to Azurim's gut. A challenge to a duel in the training arena becomes the only way for rivals to resolve their conflict. Theo's smug smile and his agreement to the duel show his complete confidence in his victory. Mei Ling's gentle compliment about her mistress's glowing skin in her new robe makes Yuna smile sheepishly. The maid's innocent question about yesterday's guest makes Yuna wary, expecting a catch. Mei Ling's conspiratorial whispers about Azurim's beauty and manners leave Yuna with a mixture of jealousy and curiosity. The story of his childhood friend's popularity among girls in his homeland only confirms his charisma and charm. The comparison of Azurima and Theo's attractiveness makes Mei Ling freeze in indecision, afraid of offending her mistress. The enthusiastic description of the Duke's stately figure and aristocratic features betrays the maid's sincere admiration. The memory of the Duke's bloody and merciless image on the battlefield causes Mei Ling to feel a slight trepidation and fear. Asking about Rei's whereabouts becomes a way for Yuna to change the subject and avoid an awkward conversation. Rumors of an important event in the training arena indirectly hint at an upcoming fight. The admiring cries of the knights surrounding Azurim confirm his fame as a skilled warrior. The guest's boastful claim to be the tribe's best hunter evokes a mixture of respect and distrust among the knights. Azurim's flirtatious remark about having had a chance to chat with the maids makes the young knights blush with embarrassment. The knights' enthusiastic agreement to Azurim's proposal to introduce them to the maids demonstrates his ability to find common ground. The Duke's sudden appearance and Azurim's caustic remark about his lateness escalate the situation to the limit. A sharp throw of the training sword becomes the silent beginning of their long-awaited duel for Theo. The icy warning that the sword is not real sounds like a mockery, only serving to inflame Azurim's pride. The knights' doubts about the outcome of the duel and their bets on the Duke demonstrate his unquestionable authority. Azurima's provocative question about why he hesitates becomes the last straw for Theo. The Duke's cold promise to teach a lesson that would make his opponent at least walk after the fight leaves no doubt about his seriousness. Azurim's lightning attack, determined to prove his strength, is met with the Duke's icy calm. Theo's effortless and graceful dodge of the blow shows his immense superiority in martial arts. Azurim's words about Yuna's unfortunate fate in this cold place become his main motivation in this fight. The accusation of cruelty and the attempt to appeal to the Duke's conscience only increase his contempt for his rival. Theo's tired question about whether he's finished chatting becomes the signal for the start of his devastating attack. Azurima's overconfident suggestion to end things quickly and disperse shows his complete ignorance of the enemy's strength. The Duke's lightning-fast and crushing blow knocks out his opponent, deciding the outcome of the fight. Icy calm and confidence in his victory do not leave Theo for a second during the entire battle. Azurima's unexpected block and the practice sword breaking in half come as a complete surprise to everyone. Theo's decision to end the fight at this point shows his reluctance to continue the senseless beating. Azurim's recognition of the Duke's unimaginable and terrifying power becomes the bitter end to his defeat. The defeated guest's attempt to immediately go to Yuna is met with Theo's icy and imperious order to stop. Julius's alarmed cry, rushing to his master's aid, interrupts their tense confrontation. Julius's calm remark that his opponent got what he deserved conceals his satisfaction with the outcome of the fight. The cry of panic at the sight of blood on the Duke's hand reveals the depth of the faithful secretary's anxiety. Theo's casual admission that his opponent was stronger than he thought only piques Julius's curiosity. Julius's bloodthirsty regret that the fight ended too quickly reveals his dark side. The Duke's arrogant statement that he allowed his rival to touch him baffles Julius. Theo's smug confidence that Azurim deserved the consolation prize masks his jealousy and anger. The image of Yuna, entangled in thorns, becomes for the Duke a metaphor for her captivity in this marriage. Theo's firm determination not to give her up for anything in the world forces him to look for a way to keep his wife close. The sudden appearance of Azarim, who destroyed the wall, comes as a complete and shocking surprise to everyone. The thought of beating the crap out of him shows the depth of Theo's irritation at the guest's insolent behavior. Azurim's angry accusation that the Duke prevented him from seeing Yuna sounds like a declaration of war. Theo's icy reminder of basic manners only serves to intensify his rival's rage and resentment. Azurim's sarcastic remark that the Duke was offended by a small scolding becomes the last straw. Theo's clever move, explaining their close proximity by rooms connected by a bridge, takes Azurim by surprise. The angry accusation that Yuna was locked in the tower is shattered by the Duke's simple and logical explanation. Yuna's appearance and her naive question about how the guest slept diffuse the tense situation. The girl's disturbing story about the collapsed staircase becomes the perfect cover for Theo's insidious plan. The Duke's false and unconvincing explanation about the repairs only arouses suspicion and distrust in Azurim. Mylene's doubts about the Duke's words only confirm Azurim's suspicions about the accident being staged. Yuna's accusation that she was to blame for the collapse and the order not to blame herself become another blow for Azurim. Yuna's innocent question about what they were talking about catches both men off guard, interrupting their tense conversation. Azurima's ironic remark about how quickly they became friends and Theo's sudden agreement shock him. Yuna's attempt to tactfully leave so as not to disturb their conversation is met with a question from her husband, who does not want to let her go. An excited talk about plans to garden with Mylene becomes a way for the girl to avoid awkwardness. Theo's concern for her delicate fingers and his suggestion to delegate the work to servants reveal his hidden care. Azurima's persistent offer to help in the garden and stretch becomes a way for him to stay close to Yuna. Theo's sudden decision to join them in the garden comes as a complete surprise to Azurim. A predatory smile and words about the need to stretch reveal the Duke's true intentions, not to leave them alone. Yuna's enthusiasm and her suggestion to plant flowers in a certain place fill their work together with joy. The question of where to place the table for tea becomes a way for the girl to involve both men in a common cause. Enthusiastic compliments on Yuna's talent for landscape design become a rare source of unanimity among men. Rei's arrival and apology for the delay interrupt their idyllic gardening. Yuna's sincere compliment about Rei's fresh appearance and beautiful uniform makes the stern warrior feel embarrassed. Rei's bewilderment at the Duke and his guest helping with the garden shows her surprise at such an unusual sight. Yuna's simple explanation that the men volunteered to help only makes Rei smile. Azurim's inner recognition that this stranger is indeed good in combat betrays his grudging respect. Rei's contempt for the upstart who dared to destroy the castle wall is mixed with curiosity about his strength. Azurima's sincere admiration for her fighting skills, which he witnessed in the arena, takes the stern warrior by surprise. Meilin's order to help with the stumps and her playful tone make an embarrassed Rei reluctantly comply. Yuna's wise decision to leave the hard work to strong men shows her feminine cunning and caring. Rei's concern that the men haven't yet recovered from their morning fight hangs in the air. Yuna's naive request to uproot tree stumps becomes a new battlefield for two rivals. Both men's self-assured acceptance of the hard work shows their desire to impress her. Theo's caustic remark about sudden difficulties and an axe that is too heavy betrays his irritation and jealousy. The provocative offer to try it myself and Azarim's boastful statement about hundreds of trees cut down only add fuel to the fire. Azarim's first clumsy attempt to handle the axe ends in complete failure and ridicule. Rei's contemptuous offer to do everything herself becomes a real humiliation for the proud guest. The girl's powerful and precise blow, splitting the stump in two, causes shock and admiration among everyone present. Yuna's enthusiastic exclamation about how stunning her maid looks fills Rei with pride. Theo's attempt to take the axe and handle the job himself is met with a cold and confident refusal from Rei. The desire to surpass his opponent at any cost and prove his superiority completely takes hold of the Duke. Yuna's enthusiastic cry addressed to her husband becomes the best motivation and support for him. The sudden weakness, cold hands, and pale face of the Duke cause Yuna to experience a fit of panic and anxiety. The decision to put work on hold and send Theo on vacation shows her concern and unwillingness to risk his health. Yuna's assumption that he was simply overtired after working the night before becomes his saving excuse. Azurima's cunning plan to invite Yuna for a walk together becomes his last attempt to win her attention. The unexpected intervention of Theo, who decided to join their walk, ruins all of his rivals' plans. Yuna's genuine concern for her husband's health and her agreement to go for a short walk show her kind heart. The sudden and acute illness that grips Theo comes as a complete and alarming surprise to everyone. A gentle request to hurry and personally brew him a special tea becomes for the Duke an expression of her love and care. Azurima's awkward attempt to put on a show for the jealous Duke leaves Yuna bewildered. Theo's order to follow them and report everything reveals his mistrust and desire to control the situation. The cold certainty that Azurim's visit is not friendly puts the Duke on his guard. A walk through a blooming garden and a question about the magic that sustains this miracle become the beginning of a frank conversation for the friends. Yuna's naive admiration for the magical stones that sustain life in the garden only emphasizes her purity and simplicity. Azurima's dreamy desire to see a frozen river reveals his interest in a new and unknown world. The sudden realization that they are being watched makes Azurim wary and interrupts their carefree stroll. The guest's guess about who is behind this surveillance only evokes a contemptuous grin. The ridiculous excuse for his thoughtfulness and the attempt to hide the true cause of his anxiety do not convince Yuna. Her memories of homesickness and the joy of nature walks demonstrate her ability to find happiness in simple things. Azurima's warm words about how she always loved to walk take them back to a carefree past. Painful memories of their walks together, interrupted by the onset of winter, darken his joy. The reference to Theo's hunting lodge becomes a pretext for Azurim to have a private conversation with his friend. The offer to come inside and talk privately sounds like a tempting but dangerous trap. Yuna's naive question about whether they were already alone shows her complete ignorance of the hidden surveillance. The ability to speak one's native language away from prying ears is a real relief for friends. An enthusiastic story about Sum's victory in the tournament and a request to convey congratulations fill their conversation with joy. The playful banter and laughter of friends recalling old grievances creates an atmosphere of mild nostalgia. Yuna's anxious question about her father's well-being makes Azurim's face darken, preparing for a difficult answer. The bitter truth that her father rarely leaves the house after her departure, and the request to convey to him news of her happiness, fill her heart with pain and hope. Azurima's confident promise that Yuna herself will be able to tell her father about her happiness gives her hope. Yuna's fear of being seen as a liar, who used marriage for the stones, makes her doubt the possibility of a quick return. Azurim's triumphant announcement that he has found another way lights a new spark of hope in the girl's eyes. Theo's impatient question about Yuna's whereabouts betrays his desire to see her immediately after a short separation. Julius's surprise at the Duke's incredibly fast healing and his impatient question about Yuna's return show his changed state. Theo's outburst of anger at Euless sending Yuna away while he was awake betrays his disappointment. The shift to a businesslike tone and the question about news from the island show the Duke's attempt to hide his disappointment behind the mask of a ruler. The alarming news about the abandoned house and the approaching cold on the island causes Theo to become anxious. Julius's report of a long conversation in the Ru language only increases the Duke's suspicions and jealousy. Yuna's question about another path, full of hope, becomes the beginning of their secret and fateful conversation. The mention of an ancient legend about a snow woman becomes the key for Azurim to unraveling the mystery of her power. The image of a mysterious woman with hair as white as snow from an ancient legend seems vaguely familiar to Yuna. The mysterious prophecy of a river of memories, capable of awakening hidden power, sounds like a dangerous but tempting promise. The opportunity to regain her true power and save the island from disaster becomes Yuna's main and most desired goal. Azurim's words about her resemblance to the snow woman from the legend make Yuna look at her father's tales in a new way. A daring plan to find the river of memories and save the island faces an insurmountable obstacle. Its location is unknown. Azurim's triumphant announcement that he has found the river and his indication of the holy water fountain come as a revelation to Yuna. The suggestion to go to the temple and drink water from the fountain, despite its logic, causes shock and disbelief in Yuna. The admission that his guesses are based only on rumors and the lack of another way forces him to take a risky step. The desire to free Yuna from the humiliating role of a beggar, begging for stones, becomes Azurim's main driving force. Yuna, despite leaving, expresses a desire to help her people and the new heir, showing her devotion. Azurim tactfully advises the girl not to tell her husband about the ancient legends, so as not to seem like an eccentric. The heroine is overcome by dreams of saving the island and restoring her father's powers if Azurim's theory proves correct. Returning to normal life and warm memories of her homeland become the main driving force for Yuna. The opportunity to become an ordinary couple, free from debt and deals, seems to the girl to be the most desirable outcome. Thinking about Theo's feelings and his recent care makes Yuna doubt the correctness of her decision. The sudden realization of her promise to make tea for her husband makes the heroine rush to the exit in panic. The girl rushes to fulfill her promise, hoping that it is not too late to make amends. An unexpected meeting with Theo, who, as it turns out, had been waiting for her all this time, takes Yuna by surprise. Embarrassment and joy from the fact that he was waiting for her mixed in the heroine's soul, causing a storm of emotions. The Duke, admiring her face, completely forgets what he wanted to say, getting lost in his feelings. Comparing her to a cute little bird with drooping wings reveals all the tenderness and affection he feels for her. Theo, trying to hide his embarrassment, explains his late wake-up time by the desire to go for a little walk. Yuna's genuine concern for his well-being and her caring question melt the remaining ice in his heart. The Duke's casual question about his recent walk becomes a way for him to start a difficult conversation. Yuna's timid request to visit the local temple comes as a complete and alarming surprise to Theo. Warning her about the difficulties of obtaining permission to visit the temple becomes his first attempt to dissuade her. Fear of the possible risk to Yuna, who is interested in the temple, forces Theo to be extremely cautious. The panicky thought that Azurim might leave before they receive permission makes the Duke jealous. The sudden and impulsive decision to immediately go to the temple the very next morning shocks Yuna with its decisiveness. Yuna's bewilderment at her husband's words about the lengthy procedure for obtaining permission is met with his confident promise to sort everything out. Theo's ironic remark that Azurim is their dear guest hides his true intentions and jealousy. The Duke's caring gesture, passing a shawl to his wife through Julius, reveals his hidden tenderness. The dreamy image of Yuna, wrapped in snow-white silk, causes Theo to feel a surge of embarrassment and tenderness. The unexpected appearance of Azurim interrupts his dreams, causing the Duke to burst into irritation. The guest's bold statement that he came to see Yuna and his persistence become the last straw for Theo. The appearance of Maylene, asking to wait while her mistress changes, saves the situation from the brewing conflict. Yuna's exclamation of delight at the sight of the two men arriving together shows her naivety and purity. Azurima's compliment about how the sacred robe suits her causes a wave of jealousy and discontent in Theo. Yuna's embarrassment at her new outfit and her timid hope that Theo will like it betray her budding feelings. The Duke's tender gesture of throwing a cloak over her shoulders becomes a silent expression of his care and love. The two men's rivalry for Yuna's attention and their competing attempts to show concern create a comical situation. Azurima's disdainful remark about the crampedness of her room becomes a way for him to prick his rival. The guest's concern about how she is being treated here and his doubts about her well-being only make Yuna smile. The girl's firm assurance that she stayed here of her own free will discourages her friend. Azurima's question about why she is afraid to stay in the same room with the Duke sounds like a direct accusation. Yuna's irritated rebuke of her friend for talking nonsense and her defense of her husband show her changed attitude. Azurima's awkward apology and his attempt to justify himself with the general opinion do not find a response from Yuna. The suggestion to hurry to the temple and the story of its luxurious decoration become a way for Theo to change the subject. Yuna's quiet apology to her husband for her friend's behavior and his reassuring response become a symbol of their reconciliation. The thought that his rival will soon leave becomes a small consolation for Theo in this tense situation. A majestic temple in Phoenix, bathed in sunlight, becomes the site of their next clash. Azurim's familiar gesture of embracing Theo and his admiration for the beauty of the temple only irritate the Duke. The appearance of the High Priest Lambros and his frightened question about the reason for their visit adds a touch of comedy to the scene. The priest's caustic remark about the Duke's disdain for the temples shows his awareness of Theo's reputation. Theo's icy question about whether he is forbidden to be here makes the insolent priest back down. The imperious order to escort the Duchess and her immediate execution demonstrate Theo's true power in these lands. The Duke's sly grin and his hint of interest in transferring to the Temple of the Eye of the Storm make the priest freeze with horror. Lambros's panicked apology and his ingratiating invitation to proceed further reveal his fear of the Duke. The divine beauty of Yuna, standing in the rays of light under the statue of the goddess, strikes the priest to the depths of his soul. Theo's contemptuous whisper, forbidding the priest to even open his mouth, puts the insolent Lambros in his place. The Duke's tender gesture of placing a prayer shawl over Yuna's head is a manifestation of his care and respect for tradition. Theo's decision to stay and wait for her outside gives Azarim the chance for another round of their verbal duel. Azarim's account of how he studied the route from Rue to Phoenix reveals his obsession and preparation. Theo's icy calm and his sarcastic remark about the expensive robe show his contempt for his rival. The accusation of spying and surveillance only provokes Azarim, who does not hide his true intentions. The direct statement that he came to see Yuna becomes further confirmation for Theo of his suspicions. The idea that she would be better off marrying him and his indifference to Delkin's money reveal Azarim's true motives. Theo's weary demand that he stop whining about unrequited love shows his growing irritation. An outburst of anger and the accusation that he knows nothing become Azarim's last attempt to defend his position. Azarim furiously accuses Theo of awakening a bloodthirsty beast within him after his mother's death. The question of whether Yuna knows about his dark side becomes the final blow for Azarim, causing Theo to explode. Yuna's appearance, shocked by what is happening, interrupts their heated argument at the most tense moment. The girl's desperate plea to let her friend go and stop the violence momentarily sobers the angry Duke. Yuna's genuine concern for her friend's well-being causes Theo to feel a new bout of jealousy. A gentle touch to the bruise on Azarim's neck becomes a silent reproach and a reminder of his cruelty for the Duke. Yuna's contemptuous question about why he doesn't even apologize finally drives Theo crazy. Azarim's sarcastic remark about his cruelty only adds fuel to the fire, igniting a new conflict. An attempt to take Yuna away from the tyrant and continue the search for the fountain meets with her unexpected resistance. The accusation of lying and the realization that she heard everything comes as a complete and devastating surprise to Azarim. The icy order not to call her by name and the reminder that he has no right to do so hurt Azarim's pride. The bitter admission that she would not have married him even if there had been no deal is the final blow for him. The panic fear of losing her and the thought that she is now afraid of him makes Theo hit the column in despair. The bitter realization that she would have seen his true face sooner or later brings him a strange relief. His determination not to let her go, even if he had to chain her up, shows the depth of his obsession and fear. Yuna's desperate cry, trying to stop his self-destruction, breaks Theo out of his dark thoughts. The idea that it would be easier to chain her up than to constantly be afraid of losing her seems to him the only way out. Yuna's unexpected reproach that he is a fool and her concern for his wounded arm take the Duke by surprise. Her panicked concern about his wound and her desire to call a doctor immediately reveal her true feelings. The wise advice to gather courage to recover quickly becomes an unexpected lesson for Theo and a sign of her love. Yuna, feeling the warmth of his hand, understands how important he is to her and how much she wants to be close. The girl, full of determination, calls Theo to follow her so that they can take care of his wound together. A couple, holding hands, suddenly burst into the infirmary, shocking the priest with their appearance. Theo politely but firmly asks the priest to leave them alone, causing him complete bewilderment. Yuna, worried, asks why he sent the priest away, since he needs help. The Duke confidently declares that everything is under control, because it is the medicine that heals, not the presence of the priest. The young man asks Yuna to sit down, explaining that the wound needs to be treated before treatment. The girl, taking his bloody hand, realizes that the wound is much more serious than it seems at first glance. An unexpected and gentle kiss on the wound makes Theo freeze in surprise and embarrassment. Yuna, with a sly smile, notes that he was lying about not feeling any pain. The girl carefully drips a healing agent onto the wound, preparing for the next stage of treatment. The magical glow and rapid healing of the wound, under the influence of the medicine, are amazing. Theo, feeling better, asks for her hand in marriage so he can continue his treatment and take care of her. The young man gently wipes her blood-stained fingers, showing his care and tenderness. The Duke and his wife, holding hands, enjoy a moment of silence and closeness after the stress they have experienced. Yuna admits that she heard their entire conversation, and this becomes the beginning of their frank conversation. The girl apologizes for Azurim's rudeness, but Theo only calms her down, showing his generosity. The Duke says with a smile that it is he who should apologize, admitting his guilt in what happened. Azurima's sudden appearance interrupts their intimate moment, once again bringing tension into the atmosphere. The guest, full of despair, reproaches Yuna for leaving so easily, without understanding the full complexity of the situation. Azurim, admitting his defeat, offers to finish his business and leave, but receives a cold refusal from Yuna. The girl's firm demand to apologize to her husband comes as an unexpected and pleasant surprise to Theo. Azurima's sincere apology and his admission that he had crossed the line eased the tense situation. Yuna's words calling him her husband make Theo's heart flutter with happiness and pride. The realization of her new status in her eyes and Azarim's embarrassed gratitude cause the Duke to smile smugly. The sudden appearance of Eulis and Mylene, full of panic, interrupts their moment of fragile reconciliation. The anxious question of what is happening and the request to listen introduce new intrigue into the scene. Breaking news from the priests that the temple's holy water source has dried up leaves everyone in shock. 5 temples of the goddess Daphne, scattered across the continent, each with its own unique architecture, are under threat. A common feature of all the churches is that they receive holy water from a main source, which has now dried up. The magical properties of an inexhaustible source, with a constant temperature, have always been considered proof of divine protection. Julius's demand for an explanation of what is happening is met with despair and fear in the priest's eyes. The bitter admission that the source began to dry up 3 months ago reveals the gravity of the situation. Fear of panic and loss of faith forced the priests to replace holy water with ordinary water, deceiving the parishioners. Knowing that this is why they restricted access to the temple makes their strange behavior clearer. The coincidence of the sources drying up and Yuna's arrival makes Theo wonder about a possible connection. The priests' desperate assurances that they will return the holy water and the mention of sending the priest to the eye of the storm sound unconvincing. The realization that the Empire can speed up the acquisition of the saint's power makes Theo decide to protect Yuna. Theo's command, reminding the priest of his duty to know the sacred texts, makes him tremble with fear. The direct and shocking question of whether the Duchess could be that very saint baffles the priest. The priest's hesitant admission that he noticed the resemblance only confirms Theo's suspicions. Lambros's explanation that the saint is the messenger and personification of the goddess herself sounds like an ancient prophecy. The priest's categorical statement about the impossibility of the saint's existence, since the goddess has already set foot in their world, seems unconvincing to Theo. The Duke's generous offer to let the priest go in peace on one condition makes Lambros tremble with fear. The icy order to immediately report any contact with other temples becomes an unbreakable law for the priest. Azurim's bitter disappointment that the trip to the temple yielded no results mars their dinner. The frustration of not being able to overhear the conversation with the priest and the ignorance of what was happening only increased his anxiety. The thought that Yuna seems to have no intention of leaving this place becomes a bitter conclusion to Azurim's visit. Theo's casual question about the effectiveness of temple medicines conceals his true interest in holy water. Azurim's false explanation of storage problems and promise to restore supplies in 3 months arouse his suspicions. Doubts about the veracity of the Duke's words and the strangeness of the whole situation make the guest be on guard. Azurim's insightful observation that Theo was interested in the holy water, not the temple, hits the mark. The decisive announcement that he is leaving tomorrow comes as a complete surprise to everyone. His hypocritical regret for disturbing Yuna makes his parting words sound like a last attempt to gain her sympathy. The admission that he was unable to help her in any way becomes a bitter conclusion for Azurim about his failed mission. Theo's relief and smug smile at the thought of his rival's imminent departure betray his true feelings. The thought that now no one but him can claim Yuna's attention fills his heart with triumph. The sudden desire to celebrate this event with champagne, which he usually doesn't like, surprises Julius. The faithful secretary's guess about the reason for his master's good mood only makes him smile. The urgent and pressing matters that Julius reports interrupt the Duke's festive mood. Julius presents the Duke with an invitation to a festival of magic stones in the south, which comes as a complete surprise to Theo. The news of the discovery of a new vein and the Thanksgiving festival only irritates and distrusts Theo. Julius's insistence on attending the festival due to the circumstances that have arisen only increases the Duke's suspicions. A report of a priest being found who had been in contact with Delkin and a secret meeting being organized puts Theo on alert. The assumption that something happened to the holy water in the Temple of Sevrain becomes the key to the mystery for the Duke. The memory of the High Priestess's slap in the face and the rumors of her seclusion only make Theo smirk. The order to begin preparations for the journey and the determination to sort everything out personally demonstrate his unyielding character. Yuna's farewell to Azurim is filled with slight sadness and regret about his imminent departure. Azurima's admission that he, too, would like to stay longer, but is expected at home, sounds like a bitter farewell. Yuna's words about her previous ideas about the North and the unexpected comfort of her new home touch Azurim. The awkward question of what to call her now and her embarrassed response show their changed relationship. Azurima's guess that she called him by name out of anger and his question about the letters in her hands bring them back to reality. Her request to deliver the letters to her father and her admission that she writes to him every day reveal her deep melancholy. Realizing how much she misses home makes Azurima think about her future and her duty. The appearance of Theo, who came to see his guest off, interrupts their farewell conversation, introducing a note of formality into it. The Duke's generosity, having packed a multitude of magical stones as a gift, comes as an unexpected but pleasant surprise to Azurim. The guest's awkward gratitude for the gift and his admission of the need to show respect to his father-in-law makes everyone smile. Azurim's farewell embrace and his hope for a quick meeting cause a fit of irritation in the jealous Duke. Yuna and her friend's mutual desire to see each other again becomes a bright and warm farewell moment for them. Azurim's determination to find the person who passed on the information about the holy water and his promise to deliver the letters later conceal his true, dangerous plans. Theo's question about what's wrong is met with silence and thoughtfulness from his wife. Yuna's regret that she should have been nicer to Azurim makes Theo jealous. The chef's appearance with an apology interrupts their tense conversation, introducing a note of formality into it. An exquisite dessert with the addition of chestnuts becomes a pleasant and unexpected surprise for them. Theo's offer to try a dish specially ordered for them, and Yuna's enthusiastic agreement diffuse the situation. The Duke's smug smile and his decision to raise the chef's salary show his satisfaction. The news of an upcoming trip to the south on important business comes as a complete surprise to Yuna. The anxious question of whether she will cope without him and his secret hope that she will ask him to go with her hang in the air. Realizing the importance of his position and responsibilities forces Yuna to suppress his selfish desires. The girl's cheerful assurance that she can cope with the help of the maids disappoints the Duke. Her sincere wishes for a safe journey and her beaming smile become a bitter farewell for Theo. David's report on the successful healing of the wound and the effectiveness of first aid only confirms Theo's suspicions. The Duke's unexpected admission that he has a pet squirrel leaves his assistants in shock. Comparing the new squirrel to the previous bird and describing it as snowy and cute adds a comical touch to the conversation. The fear of losing her and the desire to lock her in a cage so that she does not escape show the depth of his obsession. The question of whether the squirrel itself wants to escape makes Theo wonder about Yuna's feelings and desires. The Duke's belief that she had already tried to escape shows his mistrust and fear. The wise advice not to jump to conclusions and the assumption of her well-being calm Theo a little. The realization that he has not experienced joy for so long, and his fear of losing his newfound happiness, become the key to his behavior. The question of what to do and the key to the cage handed to him by David become a symbol of the choice between love and control for the Duke. David, full of enthusiasm, explains to the Duke that he must show the squirrel who is boss here, because animals have no will of their own. Julius covers her face with her hand in horror, not believing that the physiotherapist still hasn't realized that he's talking about the Duchess. Naive David continues to develop his theory, assuring that over time, the squirrel will begin to consider him its master and follow him everywhere. Theo, who is taking notes with interest, finds the taming method quite interesting, to the complete amazement of his secretary. The Duke, carefully taking notes, considers how to apply the advice on feeding and stroking in practice. The thought that his master is finally learning to recognize and control his emotions fills David with hope. Theo's sly grin as he continues writing suggests that he will fully regain his humanity by following this plan. A happy Yuna, remembering the past day, shares her joy with Meline, not yet knowing about the taming plan. The memory of Theo's strange compliment about how well she eats bread leaves the girl slightly perplexed. A gentle pat on the head and praise for a good appetite make Yuna blush with embarrassment. An unexpected compliment about the beauty of her large, round eyes comes as a pleasant surprise to the heroine. A stroll through the evening garden and admiration of the hydrangeas that have not yet bloomed create a romantic atmosphere. Theo's surprise at how long one can admire these fragile flowers reveals a new, sensitive side of him. A compliment on her intelligence and knowledge of botany, as well as an offer to take a further walk, finally melts her heart. The memory of them eating chestnut cake together and his praise while she ate it brought a warm smile to Yuna's face. Malin's disbelief that the stern Duke could shower anyone with compliments only makes her laugh. The maid's confident statement that his lordship really likes Yuna makes the girl think. Mailing's words about how much the Duke has changed thanks to her fill Yuna's heart with pride and happiness. The story of his past seclusion and drunkenness only emphasizes the enormous change that had taken place in him. Mailing's enthusiastic conclusion that marriage truly makes a man makes Yuna take a fresh look at their relationship. The realization that she and Theo are married and her desire to do more for him fills Yuna with determination. Yuna's plan to do something while the Duke is away becomes a way for her to show she cares. The decision to start with weeding the lawns and Malin's cheerful response show their willingness to work together. The maid's admiration for the fluffy kitten and their delight at its cute appearance add a touch of warmth to the scene. Yuna's sudden appearance and her question about what they are doing takes the frightened maids by surprise. The story of a kitten who lost its mother and their secret care for it touches the heart of the kind Duchess. The maids' panic fear that they might be punished for bringing an animal into the castle only makes Yuna smile. The girl's sincere desire to play with the kitten finally calms the frightened maids. A fun game with a nimble baby and his loud meowing fills the garden with joy and laughter. The cuteness of the kitten eating and its charming appearance unite the girls in shared delight. The strange and vaguely familiar intonation with which the maids speak to the kitten puzzles Yuna. Trying to remember where she might have heard these words makes the girl plunge into her thoughts. The maid's confused question about who it was and her bewilderment only increased her confusion. The request to keep the cat away from the stove due to the head maid's dislike of cats adds a note of alarm to the idol. Asking the Duke's permission to keep the kitten in the backyard becomes a sign of respect for Yuna. The sudden appearance of Theo, who was just looking for her, becomes a real gift of fate for the girl. Yuna's timid request to leave the cat in the estate's garden only causes the Duke mild surprise. Theo's warm and tender consent, given only because she wants it, fills Yuna's heart with happiness. A pat on the head and a compliment about her kindness become the highest reward for the girl for her actions. The memory of the candy and the familiar name that he can't quite remember leaves Theo slightly perplexed. Theo, remembering the servant's tender attitude towards the cat, offers Yuna a candy, following the stupid advice about taming. The The girl's angry scream and her accusation that he treats her like a pet leave Theo in shock. Yuna runs away in tears, not wanting to hear anything, leaving the confused Duke in complete bewilderment. Theo, grabbing his hapless advisor, demands an explanation as to why his plan failed miserably. The Duke's menacing demand to lock the squirrel away and his despair at its reaction send a chill through David. The physiotherapist's panicked question about what to do now is met with the icy anger of the deceived Duke. The desperate advice to immediately apologize to the Duchess becomes David's only salvation. Theo's stubborn reluctance to apologize and his talk of mutual affection in marriage show his complete lack of understanding of the situation. The Duke's naive question about whether the Duchess should be kind to him sends David into a fit of despair. The realization that he needs to make peace as soon as possible finally occurs to the stubborn Duke. Yuna, hugging a pillow, thinks bitterly about what a terrible person her husband is, who doesn't see her as an individual. Memories of his recent compliments and care now seem to her just part of a cruel plan to tame her. The bitter thought that she had already begun to believe in his sincerity made her heart clench with pain. An explosion of rage and despair at being seen as something that can be tamed causes Yuna to punch a pillow. Thinking about his beauty while working and training only increases her disappointment and resentment. The memory of his strong body and the exciting moments of intimacy cause her to feel a surge of embarrassment and anger. The girl tries to drive away indecent thoughts, angry at herself for her weakness and attraction to him. Theo's appearance, coming with an apology, and his request to open the door takes Yuna by surprise. The question of what is going on and the sight of the mysterious bag in his hands arouse her curiosity. The confused suggestion that it is some kind of toy is met with his serious and mysterious denial. Theo, handing Yuna a bag, announces his imminent departure, leaving her completely perplexed. The thought that he is leaving tomorrow makes the girl's heart clench with anticipation of a long separation. Yuna's direct question about when he started treating her like a cat puts the Duke in an awkward position. Theo's surprise at how easily she has captured his repressed animalistic desires makes him think. A slight regret that she had been too rude in calling him a bear betrays her nascent sympathy. The Duke's sincere assurance that he never considered her a pet sounds like a desperate attempt to justify himself. The admission that he acted this way because she was nice comes as a complete and shocking surprise to Yuna. The revelation of his awkward way of expressing emotions and admiration for her cuteness melts the girl's heart. Yuna's playful question about whether he would like it if she treated him like a pet catches Theo off guard. The Duke's confused and cunning agreement to her game and his admission that he would be pleased completely disarm Yuna. The sudden realization that her heart is about to soften makes the girl retreat hastily. Yuna's panicked flight and request to leave leaves the confused Duke standing at her door, completely perplexed. Theo's early return to his office and his thoughtful appearance surprised Julius. The order to call Khan, the most skilled of the shadows, and his thoughtful appearance speak of the seriousness of the Duke's intentions. Julius's guess that the shadow is needed to spy on his missing wife causes him to panic. The Duke's morning appearance, ready for departure, and his anticipation by the carriage are filled with a slight sadness. Theo's secret hope of seeing her one more time before leaving shows the depth of his affection. Yuna's appearance, hurrying to see him off, and her reproach for wanting to leave without saying goodbye come as a pleasant surprise to him. The Duke's awkward excuse that he thought she didn't want to see him betrays his insecurity. The playful touch of her lips on his and her words about having thought of something intrigue and excite Theo. Yuna's funny remark that he is too tall and not cute at all makes Theo freeze in confusion. An unexpected and bold hug becomes a girl's way of showing that she can be just as affectionate. The touching promise to wait for his return and her sincere concern fill the Duke's heart with warmth. His desperate plea to stay and not go anywhere, backed by the promise to spend as much money as necessary, shows his fear. Yuna's happy laughter and her assurance that she had planned to be at the estate anyway brings him relief. The revelation of the secret about the Shadow Knight Han, who will protect her, comes as a real shock to Yulis. The girl's innocent question about whether it's time for him to go makes Theo look for an excuse to stay a little longer. A passionate and tender embrace becomes a silent confession for the Duke of how much he does not want to leave. The difficult farewell and his longing gaze, directed into the distance, show the full depth of his unwillingness to part. 3 days after his departure, the garden, transformed by Yuna's efforts, shines with new colors. The girl's enthusiastic question about how she likes the result and Ray's praise fill her with pride. The thought that she decorated the garden for her Grand Duke makes Ray look at her mistress in a new way. The maid's confidence that her master would definitely like this surprise makes Yuna smile shyly. A sudden invitation to tea from the influential Brown family comes as a real surprise to Yuna. The realization that she can now attend any social event fills her heart with awe and excitement. Ray's explanation of the importance of social gatherings to gather information and help the Duke prompts Yuna to accept the invitation. The excited decision to buy new dresses and prepare gifts becomes the beginning of fun preparations for girls. The knights' rude entry into the tavern and their demand to bring all the food disrupts the peaceful atmosphere of the establishment. The panic and fear in the innkeeper's eyes at the sight of uninvited guests speaks of their bad reputation. Theo's casual remark that it might look like they've been starving for days obscures his true purpose. Julius, seeing his master's haste, reports that the knights are exhausted. But this does not stop Theo. The abrupt refusal of dinner and the order to continue on their way demonstrate the Duke's complete indifference to the needs of his people. Theo, left alone, clutches the communication stone in his hand, hoping for a quick conversation with his wife. The thought that he left a message for Ray about the stone makes him eagerly await her call. The first attempt to contact Yuna through the magic stone and her confused voice make him smile. The girl's delighted cry that she feels like he is nearby fills his heart with warmth. Explaining the principle of the communication stone and its reflection in it becomes a moment of magic for them. The news of the Brown family's tea invitation leaves Theo slightly uneasy and suspicious. The memory that this family trades stones with the Empire and has never gone against his will alarms the Duke. Yuna's naive desire to bake chestnut pies as a gift for Lady Brown only makes Theo smile. Regret that he won't be able to try her treat and her promise to bake for him upon her return bring them closer. Yuna's question about what he did today and his short answer about a long journey reveal his fatigue. The girl's concern about the difficulties of crossing the mountains and its brief confirmation show her concern. The sudden realization of how tired he is and her gentle request to rest makes him feel uneasy. Julius's thought that his master should at least eat, despite his fatigue, shows his devotion. Noticing that his master was left alone, Julius felt a slight sense of uneasiness and bewilderment. Hearing strange sounds coming from the Duke's room, the faithful secretary panics and tries to understand what is happening. The sight of Theo, naked to the waist, surrounded by rose petals, leaves Julius in complete shock. The Duke's awkward excuse that he was simply hot only makes Yuna feel slightly embarrassed. The girl's remark that even in the north he wears thin clothes becomes another discovery for her. Yuna's gentle compliment about how his muscles are clearly visible in the moonlight makes her feel embarrassed. The embarrassment of her bold words and the attempt to justify herself by saying that she is now wearing pajamas reveal her awkwardness. The thought of her sleeping naked and the sudden heat that erupted from her words send Theo into complete shock. The strange impact-like sound and his awkward excuse betray his extreme embarrassment and agitation. The voice of Julius, who found his master in an awkward position, only adds to the comical nature of the situation. Theo's attempt to quickly end the conversation and his promise to contact later show his desire to escape. Julius's confirmation that it was a communication stone and his bewilderment at what was happening irritated the Duke. Julius's outburst of righteous anger, accusing his master of using a valuable artifact for peeping, leaves Theo stumped. The secretary's panicked arguments about a possible war and the need for the Duke's presence find no response from Theo. Yuna, full of determination, heads to the kitchen to bake chestnut pies for the upcoming tea party. Chef Hans, embarrassed by her presence, offers to help, but the girl decides to do everything herself. The question about Mylene's love of chestnuts and the friendly atmosphere in the kitchen create a feeling of warmth and comfort. The chef's enthusiastic review of her excellent pie and his offer to treat the servants fill Yuna with pride. The maids consent to the tasting, and their joyful anticipation become the best reward for Yuna. The ceremonial gathering of servants for pie tasting becomes a real holiday for everyone. The unexpectedly salty taste of the pie and the laughter of the girls who realize their mistake ease the tension. Yuna is surprised by the rave reviews from other maids who loved the salty taste and crispy texture. The confusion of such different reactions and Mylene's whispers make her wonder about the strange tastes of the locals. Asking the chef to bake a pie for everyone, despite his surprise, shows her generosity. The explanation that now every servant will be able to eat dessert to his heart's content without worrying about the price leaves Hans shocked and delighted. Yuna's enthusiastic announcement that she can spend money freely leaves the maids shocked and perplexed. Her sincere gratitude for their hard work and permission to eat to their heart's content shows her kind and generous heart. A timid request from one of the maids to help in the garden, and her story about her father, a gardener, touches Yuna deeply. Tea day at Earl Brown's estate promises to be Yuna's first serious test in high society. Emily Brown's smug confidence that the Grand Duchess will not be able to find fault reveals her insidious plans. The desire to personally see and appreciate the Duke's new wife becomes the main intrigue of the day for the mistress of the estate. A disdainful remark about her snow-white hair and hatred of snow in the north reveals Emily's true intentions. The thought of revenge for her friend Giselle, who suffered from the Duke's wrath, becomes an obsession for Emily. Giselle's tears and complaints about her husband's suffering because of his quarrel with the Duke only fuel Emily's thirst for revenge. A false story about the Duke's cruelty and the ruin of their family, due to the whim of the new Duchess, becomes the beginning of an insidious conspiracy. The explosion of despair and the accusation of the Grand Duchess for all the troubles show the full depth of their hatred and envy. Hypocritical compliments about the garden and its owner conceal the guests' true attitude toward Emily and her plans. Contemptuous gossip about the new Duchess's barbaric origins and her ignorance creates an atmosphere of hostility in the hall. The announcement of the Grand Duchess's arrival leaves everyone frozen in anticipation, preparing for the upcoming performance. Yuna's radiant smile and greeting, full of nobility and dignity, leave a lasting impression on everyone. The silent surprise and shock on the guests' faces at the sight of the graceful and beautiful girl breaks all their stereotypes. The realization that she is much more beautiful than they thought, and the order to sit still, reveal Emily's confusion. The cunning plan to demonstrate his contempt by not greeting her becomes the hostess's last trump card. Yuna's introduction under the name Yulina and her confident appearance finally destroy all their insidious plans. Her enthusiastic thanks for the invitation and her friendly gesture cause a confused Emily to invite her to sit down. Emily notes with satisfaction that her plan worked, and the Grand Duchess's pride is hurt by her place at the end of the table. Yuna's polite request to add chairs for her entourage puts the hostess in an awkward position. Emily's suggestion that the Duchess wants to humiliate her by forcing her to serve the maids causes her to burst into anger. Yuna's insightful guess about Mylene's relationship to her and her polite treatment of Ray show her attentiveness. The girl's sincere concern about whether her maid would get tired of standing shows her kindness and care. The offer to swap places if Ray gets tired, and her concern for the gifts finally melt the maid's heart. The thought of Yuna humiliating her by offering to give up her position to a maid makes Emily clench her fists in rage. Hypocritical gratitude for the accepted invitation hides the true feelings of the hostess, who is preparing for an attack. A question from one of the guests about whether this is the Duchess's first appearance in society becomes the beginning of their insidious game. Her surprise that she hasn't received invitations before, and her naive appearance only serve to inflame the gossips. The fear that rumors might spread about her bad relationships with other ladies makes Yuna a little anxious. Mylene's angry outburst, accusing the ladies of not sending the invitations themselves, takes everyone by surprise. Yuna's admission that she is very excited since this is her first invitation leaves the ladies puzzled. Comparing this visit to visiting a friend and her genuine joy completely disarm the gossips. The provocative suggestion to call her by her first name, as her friends do, becomes a real challenge for Emily. Mylene's realization that they are all trying to embarrass her mistress makes her be on her guard. Yuna's unexpected agreement and her counter-question about the names of the other ladies leave the gossips stumped. The timid introductions of Therese, Chloe, and Marie show their confusion and defeat in this verbal duel. Yuna's delighted joy at meeting someone new and her sincere friendliness completely ruin all their insidious plans. The offer of tea before it gets cold becomes Emily's way of emerging from a losing battle with dignity. Ray, saving a guest from falling, accidentally spills tea on her, creating an awkward situation. The maid's concerned question about the lady's well-being and her embarrassed gratitude diffuse the situation. Ray's suggestion to go gift shopping becomes a way for her to smooth over the awkwardness and continue the evening. One of the ladies' contemptuous question about Ray's lack of a last name reveals her arrogance and snobbery. Yuna's enthusiastic tale of her maid's military achievements and her knighthood leaves everyone in shock. The guests' confusion as to why a knight works as a maid is met with Mylene's simple and proud answer. Emily's thoughtfulness and her desire to invite Ray to sit down show her surprise and confusion. Ray's return with gifts interrupts their conversation, returning the evening to a formal course. The modest gift Yuna prepares for each of the guests becomes a manifestation of her kindness and generosity. The appetizing appearance of chestnut pies, made personally by the Duchess, arouses genuine interest in everyone. Yuna's confirmation that she baked the treat herself becomes the perfect excuse for Emily to tease her. A cunning housewife comes up with a cunning plan to humiliate the Duchess by ridiculing her culinary skills. The hypocritical impatience and desire to try the pie hide the true intentions of Emily and her friends. A critical remark about the cake being dry and the chestnuts being too rich in flavor is the first sign of their attack. Complaints about the pie being hard to swallow and the general dissatisfaction are a real blow to Yuna. A direct accusation that the pie is too dry and the spices overpower the flavor completely upsets the girl. Malin's confusion and her suggestion that the pies might have spoiled on the way reveal her anxiety. Emily's boastful talk about the delicious cake at her wedding becomes another way to humiliate Yuna. Enthusiastic memories of the cake from the pastry chef from the Bio Empire and its unique taste only make the situation worse. And tactless remark by one of the ladies about Yuna's lack of a wedding ceremony becomes the last straw. Emily's curiosity and her caustic question about the reason for the lack of a ceremony hurt Yuna deeply. Malin's angry shout, trying to stop the flow of caustic remarks, only provokes the mistress of the house. The persistent question about whether there is a special reason for not having a wedding makes Yuna clench her fists in frustration. Emily's insidious suggestion that the Duke himself did not want to conduct the ceremony comes as a real blow to Yuna. Hypocritical sympathy and the question of whether a loveless marriage is too much finally finishes off the girl. Emily's boastful tale of her grand wedding and the success of the other ladies becomes the last straw. Mailing's confusion and her question about whether it is sad to be unloved by one's own husband take Yuna by surprise. A furious outburst from the faithful maid, accusing the ladies of going too far, interrupts their mockery. Yuna's calm reassurance that everything is okay and her attempt to stop Milene show her fortitude. The honest admission that she got married without even seeing his face, and the lack of a wedding shock everyone present. A beaming smile and words about how this is why she wants to love him even more discourage the gossips. Yuna's story about how difficult it is for them to even hold hands, and her sincere desire to get closer, leaves the ladies perplexed. The memory of her gathering courage and taking his hand becomes a symbol of her determination. The delighted exclamations and shock on the ladies' faces at such courage and frankness show their complete defeat. The story of his reaction and desire to come once again convinces everyone that he was not against it. Emily's guess that the Duke was delighted, and her complete defeat in this verbal duel become obvious. Yuna's embarrassed admission that they had even hugged recently sends the ladies into another fit of shock. Teresa's admiration for how quickly they are progressing, and Yuna's admission that it was her initiative finally changes their minds. The girl's uncertainty about whether it was her initiative and her request to assess the situation make everyone smile. Yuna's enthusiastic story about the farewell hug and his desire to be with her a little longer finally wins the hearts of her new friends. Emily, captivated by Yuna's story, completely forgets about her insidious plan to take revenge for Giselle. Teresa's doubts that Yuna had no bad intentions from the beginning show her changed attitude. The Duchess's purity and innocence make everyone believe in her kindness and inability to do anything bad. Emily's bitter admission that Giselle's husband is probably to blame for what happened comes as a revelation to her. Yuna's genuine joy at her first casual conversation at a tea party melts the hearts of her new acquaintances. Marie's exclamation of delight at the sight of the gifts from the Grand Duke interrupts their frank conversation. The famous plates from Armin, made by the famous master, cause a real shock in all the ladies. The mention of the limited edition and the high value of the gift only emphasizes the Duke's generosity and attention. Emily's confusion that Ray could forget such an important order makes the maid feel embarrassed. Ray's cunning plan to deliberately bring the gifts separately to emphasize their significance works perfectly. Emily's admiration for Theo's care and attention, who remembers about gifts even on the road, brings a warm smile to Yuna's face. Emily's humble request for advice from the Grand Duchess and her admission of her own wrongness become an act of reconciliation. The bitter admission that her husband never cared for her during social events reveals her loneliness. Yuna's sincere apology for her rude behavior and her remorse touched her deeply. Emily's hypocritical claim that the pie tasted great and her call for others to agree sound unconvincing. Everyone's regret and apologies for their behavior become a sign of their sincere remorse for Yuna. Yuna's reproach that they are now talking to her as if they have never met before makes them feel embarrassed. The girl's sincere admission that she enjoyed the day and her gratitude for their attention finally breaks down all barriers. The offer to call her Yulina and her words of friendship become a real gift for Emily. A return invitation to hold the next meeting at her estate, and Emily's enthusiastic consent mark the beginning of their true friendship. Yuna asks her friends with interest about their husbands, wanting to learn more about family life. A new acquaintance and frank conversation with other ladies brings the girl a feeling of relief and joy. The praise from the maids for her wise behavior and ability to win people over fills Yuna with pride. Ray and Maylene's angry whispers about how they restrained themselves from lashing out at the gossips betray their loyalty. Yuna's admission that she was hurt by the wedding talk, but was glad they were sincere, shows her generosity. The question of what needs to be done to hold a return tea party becomes the beginning of their new joint plan. The unexpected appearance of Count Vulik, who heard about the Duke's visit to the festival, interrupts their conversation. Theo's irritated demand for brevity and his reluctance to listen to long speeches betray his fatigue. The Duke's abrupt refusal to listen to his request to invest money in a new business leaves the Count at a loss. The cold order to deal with the rest of Julius and his departure show Theo's complete indifference to the Count's affairs. An icy look and a question about whether he had misheard made the annoying Count fall silent. Julius's weary remark that the Duke is apparently tired becomes the Count's only explanation for his behavior. Theo's gentle call from the linking stone brings him back from the world of business and intrigue to his wife. Yuna's enthusiastic recounting of how well the tea party went and her gratitude for his support fill his heart with warmth. Theo's compliment that she is a kind and sweet girl herself makes Yuna blush in embarrassment. The girl's sincere gratitude for his gifts, which helped her improve their relationship, touches him deeply. The satisfaction that his secret gift-sending mission was accomplished and that Ray had done a good job brought a smile to Theo's face. Yuna's happy story about the wonderful conversation and her plans for the next tea party confirm his suspicions. The question of what he needs to confess and his embarrassed look intrigue and excite the girl. Yuna's thoughtfulness about how much money was spent on gifts and her decision to spend some of her own show her generosity. Yuna proudly talks about her decision to hire 2 kitchen assistants and prepare more desserts for the staff. Theo's praise and permission to spend as much as she wishes show his complete trust and generosity. The Duke's declaration that everything he has belongs to her makes Yuna's heart flutter with happiness. The quiet idyll of their evening conversations over a cup of tea becomes for the girl a symbol of their budding closeness. Her timid admission of boredom and her gentle whispers to the connection stone betray her longing. Yuna's embarrassed muttering that she was just whining and bored only brought a warm smile to Theo's face. The sudden breaking of the communication stone becomes a real shock for the girl and a harbinger of trouble. Despair from the loss of her only connection with her husband and fear for his fate overwhelm Yuna. A frantic attempt to contact Theo with the last remaining stone fills her heart with anxiety. The Duke's tender response and his admission that he misses her too comes as a real relief to her. Yuna's sincere joy and happy smile, holding the bond stone to her heart, show the full depth of her feelings. Julius's tired grumbling about who even thought of building a temple in such a place reveals his weariness. The remark that his lordship is full of energy and the rumors of his knightly training only emphasize his stamina. Theo's embarrassment at the story of the broken swords and his fear of going mad without letting off steam betray his tension. Arriving at the temple and knowing they were welcomed inside filled the Duke with determination. The appearance of the high priest Perkos and his invitation to enter marks the beginning of their mysterious meeting. The priest's words that he had been waiting for them and his calm appearance left Theo slightly perplexed. The observation that everything on the outside seems completely different from what it is on the inside only adds to the mystery of the place. Perkos's wise words that this statement is true for most things hint at hidden secrets. The offer to drink hazelnut tea, which warms the body and relieves fatigue, marks the beginning of their frank conversation. The similarity in taste between hazelnut tea and ash tea becomes another link between Theo and Yuna. The high priest's direct question about the reason for his visit forces Theo to get to the heart of the matter. Doubts about whether the man who transmitted information about Saint Daphne can be trusted torment the Duke. The priest's confirmation that he knows about the missing holy water only increases the tension in the room. The philosophical remark that everything depends on the will of the goddess and his sly smile make Theo suspicious. The Duke's attempt to catch the priest in a lie and his mention of the elder's secret knowledge are met with a calm response. The story that time flows differently in the eye of the storm and all memories of that place are erased sounds like an ancient legend. Theo's skeptical question about whether he should believe this shows his distrust of the priest's words. The calm answer that it was his choice and the admission of his own ignorance only enhance Perkos's mystery. The Duke's direct question about whether the Holy One's power will disappear after the holy water is restored leaves the priest stumped. The shocking suggestion that the saint herself might also disappear terrifies Theo. The legend of the disappearance of the first saint after the appearance of the goddess Daphne becomes an ominous omen. The assumption that the new saint will also disappear after fulfilling her mission seems logical to the priest. The mention of the absence of information about the fate of the saint in sacred texts only increases the Duke's anxiety. The prospect of Yuna becoming a normal human after using her power becomes a ray of hope for Theo. The dream of escaping the Empire and living a quiet life with Yuna now seems entirely achievable to him. The priest's weary statement that this is all his goodwill can do interrupts their conversation. Perkos's admission that he does not trust the Duke and his story of his debt to Lady Camilla reveal his true motives. The question of why Lady Camilla would come here and his calm answer about friendship only increase the intrigue. The priest's account of the numerous questions about the saint and his unchanging answer hints at a hidden game. Perkos, with icy calm, declares that the power of the saint is something more than mere people can understand. And this is not an offer, but a threat. Eulis is horrified to realize that the high priest actually thinks Theo is hunting for the power of the saint. The story about the priest's debt to Lady Camilla only confirms Theo's suspicions about a hidden game. The order to contact her immediately and inform her of the imminent visit shows the Duke's determination to sort everything out. Lady Camilla eagerly awaits the arrival of Theo, whom she has not seen for many years. The memory of their last meeting 5 years ago and his cold appearance leave her with mixed feelings. Theo's sudden appearance 5 years later, with his rat-like grin, only confirms her worst fears. The desperate scream and attempt to stop him shows her fear and unwillingness to see him again. The memory of Theo, wounded and exhausted after torture, causes her to feel a surge of anger and pain. The priest's story of losing his arm due to torture and his grave condition only intensify her rage. Theo's determination to return to the battlefield despite his wounds and weakened defenses shows his stubbornness. A sharp slap and her angry scream become a cold shower for him, bringing him back to reality. The accusation that he has become a monster and her despair at his recklessness deeply wound Theo's pride. The pain of losing her son and the fear of losing him too force her to take extreme measures. Her bitter regret for her rudeness and admission that she was wrong show her remorse. A direct question about his desire to marry the Grand Duchess of Carenrose becomes for her a test of his true feelings. Her son's confirmation and his words about the imperial family's ambitions only complicate her already difficult task. Refusing the prepared carriage and her decision to consider him her son becomes an act of forgiveness for her. Bitter regret that she was unable to mend fences with Theo and Carenrose clouds her memories. The news of the arrival of his lordship's carriage interrupts her heavy thoughts, returning her to the present. Lady Camilla notes with slight irony that since Theo came to her first, he has seen everything in his time. The Duke's cold demand to state his terms shows his unwillingness to waste time on empty talk. Lady Camilla's offer to help him in exchange for a favor for Perkos marks the beginning of their difficult deal. The suspicion that he is interested in the throne and her story about the saints only cause Theo bewilderment. The story of the sick crown prince and the princess who didn't even have a coming-of-age ceremony seems familiar to him. The direct accusation of wanting to use the power of the saint to seize the throne makes Theo smirk coldly. The Duke's firm statement that he is not interested in either the throne or the power of the saint baffles Lady Camilla. The shock and bewilderment on her face at his words about wanting to make sure no one could use this power betrays her confusion. Lady Camilla's words that Perkos would never trust him as long as he had imperial blood in him sounded like a warning. The deal's condition, a promise to help Perkos and stop the emperor, becomes Theo's only way out. The mistrust and despair that shine through in her words reveal the complexity and danger of their situation. A direct question about what he wants in return, and his answer that it is still a deal, brings them back to reality. The offer to introduce him to the king's daughter, Ashlyn, instead of his current wife, comes as an unpleasant surprise to Theo. The memory of his broken engagement 5 years ago and Ashlyn's wealthy kingdom makes him tense. The Duke's categorical refusal of such an offer demonstrates his devotion and loyalty to his wife. The memory of King Ashlyn's furious refusal to give his daughter in marriage to a worthless man makes everyone laugh. The question of his relationship with his current wife and her doubts about his feelings make Theo think. The reproach that he does not love her and the lack of a wedding pierce his conscience like an arrow. His bitter admission that he was too indifferent to Yuna's first marriage shows his remorse. The promise to hold a wedding ceremony upon his return becomes Theo's first step toward redemption. Lady Camilla offers Theo the magic stones with a grin, knowing he has plenty of them. The direct question of whether he can do it and her offer to make a deal become a test for Theo. His irritation at her remaining the same sly fox and his agreement to send a wedding invitation show his concession. Theo's question about flowers grown with magical stones reveals his hidden romantic intentions. The decision to take a couple of flowers with him and his departure leave Lady Camilla completely perplexed. The Duke's admission that the flowers are meant for his wife and his happy smile shock her. Lady Camilla's disbelief that the stern Theo is capable of such romantic gestures shows her surprise. Gratitude for the visit and a warm welcome in the blooming garden become the beginning of a new acquaintance for Yuna. The girl's pride in the work she had done and her question about how they liked the result show her efforts. Emily's critical yet approving view of the work done reveals her complex character. The compliment that it is very much in her spirit and the praise for the idea of the round table become a sign of reconciliation. The general agreement that a round table is a good place to have a cozy chat creates a friendly atmosphere. The question of where Lady Ray is becomes a pretext for Teresa to start a new, intriguing conversation. The playful whispers and laughter of the friends at the mention of Ray reveal their secret interest in her. Emily's suggestion to come up with a name for their new band becomes symbolic of their budding friendship. Yuna's enthusiastic agreement and her joy at such a wonderful idea show her sincerity. The funny suggestion to name their group Tea Cake makes everyone laugh and approve. The simplicity and aptness of the name, reflecting their meetings over tea and cake, is well liked by everyone. The general approval and joyful atmosphere show that their friendship is growing stronger. Ray's sudden announcement that Lady Giselle has come to see her interrupts their fun. Emily, calming her friend, explains that Yuna is a good person and all misunderstandings have been resolved. The sly hint that she told Giselle about the upcoming tea party gives away her cunning plan. Yuna's joyful exclamation and her naive belief that Giselle was simply interested show her purity. The enthusiastic offer to invite her and Giselle's appearance at the garden gate become the culmination of Emily's plan. The innocent question of what she was doing there and her reproach for her silence concealed the true reason for her visit. Admitting that she was simply curious about the Grand Duchess's personality sounds like a challenge. Emily's cunning plan is for Giselle to see Yuna's kindness for herself and realize that everything was a misunderstanding. Yuna's polite greeting and the introduction of Giselle mark the beginning of their difficult acquaintance. A caustic expression of gratitude for the welcome, despite the unexpected visit, reveals the guest's true intentions. Her critical glance at the garden and the caustic remark that a gang of children had destroyed everything there showed her contempt. Disdainful comments about the tasteless garden and the absurd combination of trees and flowers become her weapon. The accusation of using a round table and violating tea etiquette is interrupted by a sharp shout from Emily. The angry outburst of the hostess towards her friend, who had crossed all boundaries, shows her changed attitude. The admiring reviews of other ladies about the magnificent garden and their desire to return here again finally finish off Giselle. The defeated schemer is overcome with rage and bewilderment at the fact that all her friends have gone over to Yuna's side. The bitter guess that it was all about the expensive plates given to her by the Duke seemed to be the only explanation. The mention of Theo's trip to the festival and his possible interest in Princess Ashlyn comes as another blow to Giselle. The rumors that the Duke went to the festival because of the princess and her shocked look betray her jealousy. The story of the beauty and fragility of Princess Ashlyn and her kingdom makes Yuna feel vulnerable. The memory that the Grand Duke once proposed to Princess Ashlyn comes as a real revelation to her. The story of Theo's rebellion 5 years ago demanding the princess's hand, leaves Emily perplexed. Giselle's confident statement that all this is in the past, and that he is now married to the Grand Duchess, sounds like a challenge. The snide remark about how strange it was for him to go to the festival, leaving his wife behind, only adds fuel to the fire. Emily's angry order to leave immediately shows her complete disappointment in her friend. The support from the other ladies and their demand that she leave, if she is going to say nasty things, finally finishes Giselle off. Her bewilderment at such a sharp reaction and her confidence in her own rightness show her complete lack of understanding of the situation. Ray's cold offer to walk her to the exit becomes the final humiliation for Giselle. The icy threat in the maid's voice and her warning of serious consequences force the impudent guest to shut up. A sudden chill down her spine and fear of this simple servant make Giselle retreat hastily. Words of comfort and stories about how their husbands weren't their first loves either help Yuna cope with her resentment. Her sincere gratitude for the kind words and her calm response that everyone has their own first love show her wisdom. Emily's belief that the present is what matters most, and her support are a true gift to Yuna. The innocent question of whether Princess Ashlyn is really that beautiful reveals her slight jealousy and insecurity. Her friends' enthusiastic assurances that she is much more beautiful, and their comparison to a goddess make Yuna feel embarrassed. Rumors that the Grand Duke was attending the festival for the first time and his unavailability only fueled interest in him. The announcement of the arrival of the High Priest Perkos and his desire to meet with the Duke adds a note of formality to the evening. The abrupt order to move away and his reluctance to be disturbed show his fatigue and irritation. Julius's panicked attempt to stop his master and his words about an important matter only make Theo angry. The secretary's clever move to discuss investments with him becomes his only way to gain time. Julius's determination to find a new business to increase the duchy's wealth while in the south shows his dedication and foresight. Julius politely lines up the annoying customers, while Theo resolutely heads towards his goal. Theo's dismissive remark that he didn't come all this way for the festival reveals his true intentions. Perkos's sly hint about his good relationship with Lady Camilla and his surprise at their meeting betray his knowledge. The priest's demand for a more specific promise in exchange for his story marks the beginning of their dangerous deal. Theo's confident assertion that he has made his intentions clear is met with the priest's disbelief. Perkos's categorical demand to swear an oath of life, and not just words, demonstrates the seriousness of his intentions. The question of swearing an oath to God causes Theo some confusion, but he is ready to do anything for his goal. The Duke's agreement to the ritual and his impatience show his determination and readiness for any challenge. The ancient ritual of swearing an oath to a god, binding souls, and sealing the promise with divine power begins. The golden thread that wraps around Theo's wrist becomes a symbol of his unbreakable vow and union with divine power. The dire warning that breaking the oath will cost one's life sounds like a death sentence. The requirement to swear to protect the saint, which also means not to harm her, becomes the main condition of the deal. Theo's strong determination to protect his wife no matter what, and his oath before God leave no doubt about his sincerity. The sudden and excruciating pain that pierces his arm becomes the first test of his will and strength. The priest's calm remark that blood is needed for the oath and his promise of a little pain sound like a mockery. The tolerable but unpleasant pain from the slowly flowing blood becomes a test of Theo's endurance. Completing the ritual and feeling the bound heart becomes proof for the Duke that the oath has been completed. The priest's praise for having done well and his own relief indicate that the test has been passed. Perkos's surprise at how easily the Duke bears such pain reveals his admiration and respect. The wise remark that only the one who takes the oath experiences pain and his admission of using divine power reveal his true nature. Theo's awkward question about why the priest is looking at him like that breaks their tense silence. The reminder that the saints are delivering a message from the goddess begins their frank conversation. The Duke's irritated remark that he already knew this and his reproach for beating around the bush show his impatience. Perkos's sly remark that if the problem were only in the holy water, everything would be simple intrigues Theo. The Duke's firm statement that the holy water did not disappear on its own and that he had already checked everything baffles the priest. The idea that someone is stealing holy water becomes the only logical explanation for both of them. The fact that the same thing is happening in other temples only confirms their worst suspicions. Theo's confidence that after this oath the priest has no reason to lie makes him trust him completely. The desire to find those who steal holy water and to learn their motives in order to protect the Holy One becomes the Duke's main goal. The suggestion that the Bio Empire is the prime suspect doesn't surprise Theo. Confirmation that the Empire is desperate to obtain the power of the Saint and is willing to do anything to achieve it only strengthens his resolve. The fact that they need so much holy water suggests that it is not just the Empire that is involved. The direct question of whether he knows how to steal her power and his thoughtful look betray his knowledge. Perkos's guess that they had traveled a long way south to learn about the Saint, and their lack of surprise at his words confirm his assumptions. The counter-accusation that the priest also knows who the Saint is, and his anger at being tested, escalate the situation. Perkos's admission that he knows but cannot act rashly shows his caution, fear of surveillance, and his decision to act differently to avoid putting himself in danger explain his inaction. The story of how he willingly made contact with those seeking the power of the Saint and his transformation into bait shocks Theo. The Duke's admission that he decided to use himself as bait because a direct appeal to the Saint would have caused tension shows his cunning. The question of why the prophecies spoke of the Saint's protection and not of how to take away her power becomes the main mystery for the priest. Perkos's stern reminder that anyone who breaks the oath will die, and his calm agreement show Theo's determination. The priest's instructions that the holy power will now remain in the Duke's body and his request to grant a blessing to the world sound like a prophecy. Theo's strong determination to not let anyone take Yuna, no matter who his opponent is, shows the depth of his feelings. The Duke's thoughtful gaze, directed into the depths of the forest, reveals his anxiety about the upcoming separation. Casting a protective spell on the flowers meant for Yuna becomes a silent gesture of care for him. The decision to take a short nap before mounting the horse turns out to be a fatal mistake for Theo. A nightmarish vision of his dying mother and his desperate cry take him back to the most terrible day of his life. The helpless plea and tears of a young boy hugging his mother's cold body tear the soul apart. An obsessive dream, repeated over and over again, becomes for him an eternal reminder of his helplessness. Falling into the snow and completely exhausted in a dream symbolizes his despair and inability to change anything. The bitter admission that he is powerless, both then and now, and that he could not protect his mother even in her sleep, shows his vulnerability. The image of a helpless little man freezing in the snow becomes for him a symbol of his own powerlessness. A mysterious voice saying that this place is not for him, and his cold body, become harbingers of a miracle. The appearance of a shining figure, its gentle voice calling to wake up, and the promise to relieve suffering seem like a dream. The image of a beautiful woman bending over him, and her words that he will no longer have to suffer, fill his heart with warmth. The feeling of warmth spreading throughout his body, and the desire to fall asleep in these gentle embraces, bring him long-awaited peace. Waking up from a nightmare and wondering about a mysterious voice he's never heard before makes him think. An alarming knock on the door and Julius's question about his well-being bring him back to harsh reality. The secretary's panicked anxiety at the sight of his master's pale face and his ridiculous excuses betray his fear. The withered flowers he so carefully preserved for Yuna become an ominous omen for him. Julius's uncertainty about whether the flowers were under a protective spell and his apology show his confusion. The thought that Yuna was eagerly awaiting the flowers and his reluctance to disappoint her leads Theo to make a risky decision. Julius's suggestion to send a messenger with new flowers becomes his only way out of the awkward situation. Secret whispers about what he overheard at the banquet and his cunning plan intrigue the Duke. Happy Yuna, stretched out on the bed after a long day, is full of joyful anticipation. The thought of Theo's surprise when he sees the transformed garden makes the girl smile. The servants' joy at the fact that the estate has truly come to life with the arrival of the Grand Duchess shows their gratitude. The hope that Theo will also be delighted by the surprise makes Yuna eagerly await his return. Remembering the special night cream that Mylene recommended to her becomes a pleasant routine for her. The maid's insistence on accepting the gift and her concern for her mistress's beauty touch Yuna. The description of the cream's magical properties, which give the skin a glow, and its exquisite aroma arouse the girl's curiosity. Mylene's gratitude for the lessons in sincerity and her admission that she has learned a lot show her changed attitude. Yuna's admission that she would never have gone to the tea party without Mylene's support shows their budding friendship. The maid's cunning confession that she stole the missing amount from her older brother's wallet makes Yuna laugh. The awkwardness and embarrassment of forgetting to wash off the mask makes Yuna cover her face in panic. The question of whether it is time to wash off the mask and her impatience betray her anxiety about going to bed. The sudden knock on the door and Ulysses' appearance in her chambers at such a late hour leave Yuna perplexed. The appearance of the secretary, alive and unharmed, who, in her opinion, should be far to the south, leaves her in shock. Ulysses' cheerful explanation that they arrived early, thanks to the Grand Duke's orders, makes her smile. The question of what is on her face and his surprised look makes Yuna feel a surge of embarrassment and awkwardness. Yuna's enthusiastic story about the gift from Maylene and her boasting about her skin only makes Ulysses smile. The secretary's confusion about where his sister got the money for such an expensive gift makes Yuna think. The news that the Grand Duke is currently sleeping and that it would be better for them to see each other tomorrow upsets the girl a little. Yuna's determination to meet Theo at her best and Julius's intriguing remark create tension. The news of the arrival of an important guest, who will stay at the estate for a long time, comes as a complete surprise to Yuna. The news that this guest will be the princess from the kingdom of Ashland plunges the heroine into real shock. Julius's reassuring words that the Grand Duke will take care of everything do not bring her any relief. The secretary's hasty departure and awkward farewell only increase her anxiety and worry. The vague feeling that he had forgotten something and his confused appearance speak of his own agitation. The question of whether the princess is Theo's first love becomes the most important and painful one for Yuna. Julius's complaints about a sleepless night and the Duke's calm response show his complete indifference to his assistant's problems. The secretary's angry outburst and his reproach that he, too, had seen the estate betray his weariness and irritation. The memory of the blooming garden and its beauty becomes the only bright spot on this trip for Theo. The appearance of Khan, Theo's shadow, and his laconic report brings the Duke back to the harsh realities of his duties. Theo smiles at the report that the Grand Duchess has put so much effort into maintaining the estate. The mention of his improved skills in making chestnut pies only heightens his tenderness and melancholy. His strict orders to make sure she never sees a woman named Giselle again show his determination. The order to convey to the Duchess that he has arrived and immediately went to bed becomes another test for Julius. The icy order to convey that everything said about Princess Ashlyn is nonsense betrays his irritation and jealousy. Ulysses' confusion about why he can't tell her this in person is met with a wall of silence. The bitterness of knowing the wilted flowers were meant for Yuna, and his failure to deliver them mars his return. The order to go to the docks at sunrise and be ready shows his determination and impatience. Julius's tired remark that he slept well in the afterlife reveals his complete exhaustion. The arrival of envoys from the kingdom of Ashland and their announcement of their arrival on the orders of the princess brings new intrigue to the morning. Theo is only slightly puzzled by the precious flower-shaped brooch presented as a gift. Julius's enthusiastic remark that this thing is worth fulfilling the princess's request only increases his suspicions. The guess that this is the very thing that the kingdom planned to present as a gift to the imperial family makes him tense. The artificial flower's complete lack of scent and its cold beauty leave Theo with mixed feelings. Ulysses' angry outburst about the money spent on this flower reveals his complete lack of understanding of the situation. The messenger's panicked request to take good care of the princess and his fear of the Duke's wrath make everyone smile. The question of whether the Grand Duke has returned yet hangs in the air at Brown Manor, filling it with anticipation. Gossip that he probably tried to return as quickly as possible to see Yuna and their honeymoon amuses his friends. Emily's message that she hasn't seen him yet and her concern about his busy schedule show her changed attitude. The news of Princess Ashlyn's arrival and his incredible busyness with preparations leaves everyone in shock. Excited whispers and surprise at the fact that the very same Princess Ashlyn will be coming to them fill the air with excitement. Emily's angry questioning of why on earth she is going and her concern for her friend show her loyalty. The alarming news that her visit will last over 2 weeks only adds to the general anxiety. Terrace's caustic remark about his first love living here, just after she had arranged the garden, hurts Yuna deeply. Yuna's calm assurance that she is okay and her faith in her husband are admired by her friends. Emily's angry outburst, believing that the Duke should have come and said everything in person, shows her righteous anger. Emily's anger knows no bounds that some homewrecker dared to show up and ruin Yuna's dreams of love. Her determination to stand up for her new friend and her accusation of obvious provocation show her changed attitude. The friends' war cry and their willingness to immediately start working on Yuna's wardrobe and jewelry speaks volumes of their support. The confident promise to show how to deal with the opponent and their fighting spirit give Yuna hope. The cunning plan to make the very name of the principality terrify the princess makes Yuna laugh. Milan and Rei's enthusiastic desire to learn the art of intrigue from their mistress and their willingness to help demonstrate their devotion. Emily's confidential remark that she can rely on them and her sly smile intrigue Yuna. The first lesson, learning to tip tea naturally, becomes the beginning of Yuna's transformation. Theo's hope that Yuna will like his surprise when she sees it shows his romantic nature. The Duke's confusion at why Rei is looking at him like that and her accusing gaze make him slightly uneasy. The maid's contemptuous remark that he looks at her as if she were an insect takes him by surprise. The announcement that the Duchess would return for dinner and his reluctance to send for her show his pride. Rei's icy offer to wait for the princess here, since the Duchess is having a pleasant time with friends, becomes a reproach for him. Theo's bewilderment at the fact that his faithful servant has lost her sense of fear after her dismissal only makes him smirk. The direct question about what she is unhappy about and her angry response reveal the depth of her disappointment. The accusation that he didn't even visit his wife, who had been waiting for him for so long, comes as a cold shower to him. Her words of disappointment and his hurt pride make Theo feel guilty. His fear of Yuna finding out about his failure with the flowers and his confusion show his vulnerability. The question of what he should tell her now and his helpless look betray his fear of her reaction. Julius's announcement that the Duchess is already on her way here makes Theo gather his strength before the inevitable conversation. Theo's panicked question about how to apologize and his willingness to kneel show his desperation. His desperate decision to run for 2 days without stopping to bring her new flowers speaks to the depth of his remorse. Yuna's appearance, radiant with beauty, and her question about how long he has been waiting, takes him by surprise. The comparison of her to an angel who has gone to heaven and his sincere admiration for her beauty make her feel embarrassed. The embarrassed blush and his confidence that he is in the next world show the full force of his charm. The jealous guess that he dressed up like that because of the princess and her attempt to hide her pain do not escape his gaze. The bold touch and her offer to talk take him by surprise, making his heart beat faster. The confirmation that she knows about the arrival of an important guest and her calm appearance surprise and delight him. His panic attack and his attempt to pull himself together when he saw her calmness show his internal struggle. Yuna's bold statement that she will stay with him in his room while the guest is here leaves him in shock. Her seductive pose and her question about whether he would like to share her bed ignite the fire of passion in him. The ecstatic thought that he is in heaven and his happy smile show his complete defeat. The disappointment that she only offered it out of politeness and her explanation about the guest bring him back to reality. Yuna's clever plan to keep the princess from realizing they were living in different rooms is admired by him. Her playful admission that she had thought about it and her sly smile finally win his heart. The order to move her things into his room and their joint departure mark the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship. The news of Princess Letitia's arrival from the kingdom of Ashlyn interrupts their solitude, bringing them back to harsh realities. Yuna's determination to remain calm and follow the advice of the Taipai girls shows her readiness to fight. The plan to look down on the princess and find fault with her every move becomes her main strategy. The unexpected touch on his hand and her question about something soft catches Theo off guard, interrupting her combative mood. The image of Theo, who became an angel in Yuna's eyes, and her admiration for him show the full depth of her love. The shock and bewilderment on Yuna's face at the sight of the young princess, so different from her expectations, reveals her confusion. Letitia's polite thanks for a comfortable journey and her impeccable manners make a good impression on everyone. Princess Letitia, Theo's first love, appears before them in all her youthful and innocent beauty. Yuna's awkward introduction and her attempt to hide her disappointment reveal her mixed feelings. The princess's enthusiastic compliment about Yuna's incredible beauty and her comparison to a heavenly angel takes everyone by surprise. Theo's remark about the princess's good taste and his awkward question about her age betray his own bewilderment. Letitia's proud announcement that she turned 11 this year comes as a real revelation to everyone. The shocking discovery that Theo proposed to a 6-year-old girl leaves Yuna absolutely horrified. The accusation that he proposed marriage to a 6-year-old child and her angry scream make Theo blush with shame. The absurd assumption that it must be another princess becomes Yuna's only salvation. Letitia's confirmation that the negotiations were specifically about her finally destroys all of Yuna's hopes. Theo's panic and awkward excuses, trying to explain that everything was wrong, only make everyone laugh. The admission that there were serious reasons for this, and the confirmation from the princess, only increases the intrigue. The story of a small kingdom that does not have magical stones, but has the technology to process them, clarifies the situation. The Duke of Phoenix's desire to obtain their technology and the king's offer of marriage as a condition of peace become the key to the mystery. The memory of how he never even thought about the wedding and his desire to break off the engagement show his true intentions. The cunning plan to choose as a bride someone who was not allowed to marry, and his insidious calculation make everyone smile. The story of how terribly angry her father was and the failure of the negotiations become a funny conclusion to this story. The rumors that she is his first love, and their persistence to this day, make everyone laugh at this ridiculous situation. Letitia's admission that the rumors of their feud played into their hands gives Yuna pause. The girl's embarrassed apology for perhaps saying too much is met with the princess's kind smile. Letitia's assurance that this was exactly what she wanted to know shows her wisdom and tact. Theo's admiration for the young princess's seriousness and unchildish wisdom reveals his respect for her. Letitia's bitter regret that in her homeland children her age still run and play shows her loneliness. A polite wish of bon appetit becomes for them the beginning of a long-awaited and difficult dinner. The tense silence at the table and their embarrassed glances betray awkwardness and constraint. Yuna's guess that the princess is simply not used to being here and is taking a closer look at the surroundings shows her sensitivity. Letitia's thoughtful suggestion that she not be shy and eat as she pleases becomes a sign of friendliness. Her embarrassed gratitude and assurance that everything is fine hide her true feelings. Theo's insistence on eating before it gets cold and his concern for her make Yuna slightly irritated. Yuna's offer to help the princess to make her more comfortable and her polite refusal show their budding sympathy. A playful question about whether she is helping him well and his happy smile lighten the tension at the table. Letitia's story about her older sister being at the Severin festival arouses everyone's curiosity. Yuna's suggestion that her sister must be stunningly beautiful if Letitia is so cute flatters the princess. The question about the princess's plans in their principality becomes a way for Yuna to continue their small talk. The mention of the difficult period of practice at the academy and its annual repetition only makes Theo smile. Letitia's confirmation that she will study the climate and the terrain, and her serious demeanor, command everyone's respect. Theo's concern that Yuna eats almost nothing, and his fear that she doesn't like the local cuisine, betray his concern. The princess's awkward excuse and her assurance that everything was delicious concealed the true reason for her lack of appetite. Yuna's thoughtful comment about the princess's long journey and lack of appetite shows her kindness. Letitia's timid refusal of fresh fruit and her embarrassed look only make Yuna smile. Yuna's admiration for the young princess's charm and maturity shows her sincere affection. Theo's comment that she doesn't look like she's only 11 sounds like a compliment. The innocent question of whether Theo likes children and his embarrassed answer betray his budding feelings. The gentle invitation to go wash up and his affectionate tone become a pleasant surprise for Yuna. The embarrassed reminder that from today on they are sharing a room makes her blush. His gallant offer to wait and his patient appearance make Yuna even more embarrassed. A sudden memory of the gift left in the box for Yuna makes Theo return. The gentle hug and his quiet call become a complete and pleasant surprise for the girl. His sincere apology for not having time to get the flower she asked for shows his remorse. The admission that he has found another flower and his timid hope that she will like it intrigue Yuna. The admiration for the beauty of the gifted flower and her sincere joy become the best reward for Theo. The confidence that she really likes the gift and his happy smile show his relief. Yuna's enthusiastic gratitude and her promise to show the flower to her friends fill his heart with warmth. The need to choose a vase and an invitation to go shopping become pleasant chores for the girl. Lady Camilla's sly smile and her reminder of the wedding invitation leave Theo with mixed feelings. A sudden headache and the memory of his invitation to his and Yuna's wedding leave him at a loss. Bitter regret that he was unable to get the gift and his sense of guilt towards his wife darken his mood. The memory of Yuna decorating the mansion with her fragile hands and her joy from their time together fill his heart with tenderness. Theo's bitter admission that he is simply a beast and his despair force him to make a decision. The determination to endure everything for Yuna and not give in to his desires becomes his main goal. Yuna's gentle invitation to go to the bathroom and his embarrassed look show their new, closer relationship. The sudden appearance of a messenger and news from her sister interrupt the young princess's peaceful rest. A slight relief that she was able to help is mixed with anxiety about the upcoming meeting. The fear of disgracing her family and kingdom in front of high-ranking officials makes her nervous. The memory of Ashlin's tiny kingdom, which she studied for the exam, becomes her saving grace. The stern reminder to behave appropriately in front of the princess only increases her anxiety. Yuna's arrival with a tray of tea and her apologies for being late add a touch of coziness to the evening. The offer of warming tea made from clear leaves and its wonderful aroma create a friendly atmosphere. Letitia's enthusiastic response that she immediately felt warmer, and her happy smile melt Yuna's heart. Sharing her own difficulties sleeping in a strange place becomes a way for Yuna to support her guest. The princess's surprise that even the Grand Duchess had troubled nights brings them closer together. The sly advice to change the bed for a more comfortable sleep and her playful tone make Letitia smile. The story of the magical blanket made of sheep's wool and its incredible softness arouses the princess's keen interest. Her timid request for the same blanket and her embarrassed look show her childish spontaneity. The touching response to her sweet request and the offer to speak with her freely show Yuna's kindness and hospitality. Letitia is perplexed by a playful offer to help her weed the garden in exchange for her kindness. The enthusiastic story about funny worms and the promise of a fun time finally captivate the young princess. Her happy smile and anticipation of the fun that awaits her in the garden show her readiness for new adventures. Letitia's enthusiastic agreement to help, if true, and her sincere gratitude show her kind heart. Yuna's offer to introduce her to her friends and her awkward transition to the informal form of address make the princess smile. Letitia's happy smile and her remark that the formal address looks awkward finally break down all barriers. Yuna's enthusiastic offer to become like an older and younger sister fills the young princess's heart with happiness. Letitia is touched by the sincere admission that she just wants to be friends because the princess is very sweet. Yuna's reassuring words about how everyone needs time to get closer and her offer to call her big sister bring them closer. The princess's joyful consent and her enthusiastic cry become the beginning of their true friendship. Letitia's happy smile and her willingness to speak freely right now show her anticipation and joy. Yuna's enthusiastic compliments and her admission that she could barely contain her delight at their first meeting make the girl feel embarrassed. Her decision to postpone the discussion of the sheepskin blanket until tomorrow and her concern that the servants had already gone to bed show her tact. The idea of making a snowman out of a pillow and its creative impulse arouse Letitia's genuine interest. The comparison of the pillow with a doll and its transformation into a real snowman delights the princess. The funny snowman with a head and body made from a pillow and his cute appearance make both girls laugh. Yuna's confession that she has never seen snowmen comes as a real revelation to Letitia. The question of whether they have just made her first snowman together fills their evening with special meaning. The enthusiastic suggestion to make a real snowman out of snow next time fills Yuna with joyful anticipation. Letitia's happy agreement and her request to teach her how to make a snowman become the beginning of their new plans together. Azurim's mysterious encounter with the man in the white cloak and their conversation about the letter add a touch of intrigue to the story. The question about his return from the Phoenix Principality and his calm response show that he is ready for action. Azurima's identity is revealed, and his determined gaze suggests that he will stop at nothing. The question of whether Serene had shown any strength, and his decisive tone, show the seriousness of Azurim's intentions. The answer that there was neither a river of memory nor holy water there left him disappointed and angry. The reminder that Serene was at the temple and the question about her reaction betray his impatience. His persistent question about whether she saw something and his growing irritation show his desperation. The suggestion of causality and his thoughtful appearance suggest that he is hiding something. The appearance of a mysterious masked figure and his words about a mutual exchange of powers add a note of sinister intrigue to the scene. The reminder of the promise he made and his words that she could return with him if she awakened, the power sounded like an ultimatum. His desperate plea for help and his words about how little time he has show his hopelessness. The mysterious figure's cold refusal to help and his indifference to Azurim's fate leave him in shock. The offer of a possible power exchange, and its condition that he would need power to gain Siren's power, sounds like a deal with the devil. The hint that someone hiding in the darkness will one day rise up for him intrigues and frightens Azurim. The accusation of offering the power of darkness and his desperate attempt to refuse are met with cold indifference. The appearance of a mysterious source of power and its alluring glow become the last temptation for Azurim. The offer to drink from the spring if he wishes to conquer Yuna, and its promise of divine power, become a fatal choice for him. The absorption of the dark power and his transformation into an obedient servant of the deity becomes a point of no return for him. Thoughts of Letizia and her guilt in making him spend his wedding night alone fill his heart with bitterness. Yuna's apology for falling asleep at Leticia's and her concern for her leaves Theo with mixed feelings. The joy that the little princess was having a hard time and her happy smile soften his anger a little. The memory of his own difficult childhood and its comparison with the princess's problems only makes him smile. The fear that Yuna, having heard this story, will definitely not leave him alone makes him cover his face with his hand. Yuna tries to calm down an angry Theo, but her thoughts are occupied with something completely different. The Duke, trying to maintain his composure, assures himself that he is not so pathetic as to be jealous of the child. Theo's jealous question about how she likes the meat and her enthusiastic answer leave him with mixed feelings. The bitter regret that this could have been their time alone and his sense of humiliation cast a shadow over the dinner. The news that Yuna will be going to Bios's country residence tomorrow morning comes as a complete surprise to Theo. The explanation about the need to discuss the details of the practice and her calm appearance make him suspicious. The question of whether Leticia could go alone and his concern for her safety betray his reluctance to let them go. The certainty that the villa is located near the pier in the noble quarter calms the Duke a little. Yuna's thoughtful offer to cook something for the princess for the journey shows her kindness. The memory of the things she wanted to discuss and her embarrassed look intrigue and excite Theo. Yuna's sudden decision to go to the kitchen and her mysterious appearance arouse the Duke's curiosity. The confidence that she has ordered something in advance and her happy smile only increase the intrigue. His icy question to Leticia about how long she plans to stay reveals his true feelings. The princess's polite reply that she would return as soon as she finished her report and her apologies for yesterday softened his anger. The story of how she slept peacefully thanks to her ladyship and her gratitude touches him deeply. The words about how Yuna has become accustomed to him and her gratitude for his presence fill his heart with warmth. His surprise that Yuna thinks that way about him and his happy smile show how much he values her opinion. The desire to repay her kindness and care becomes Leticia's main goal in staying here. The question about what she heard at the tea club meeting about the lack of a wedding ceremony becomes the start of a new conversation. The casual remark that in arranged marriages, the ceremony is sometimes skipped and coldly absent is intriguing and alarming. Theo's confident promise to throw the most lavish wedding so that no one would dare say a word shows his determination. Leticia's admiration for his romanticism and her surprise that he would propose at all leave Theo confused. Her excited question about whether he's going to make a real proposal and her joyful anticipation make him smile. Her admission that she admires his approach and her words that this will be Yuna's first special moment in her life touches him. Confusion and the sudden realization that he had almost forgotten about the proposal itself make him collect his thoughts. Leticia's story about her 5 older sisters and her rich life experience earns Theo's respect. Her words about having seen marriages of love and of convenience, and all of this firsthand, show her wisdom. The princess's sincere desire to become a reliable support for him and her willingness to help touch him deeply. Theo's surprise at how narrow her view of things is, and his realization that she is not a helpless chicken at all, changes his mind. Leticia appears before him as a true talent and exactly the person their principality needs. His satisfaction at having spoken to Princess Ashlyn and his new plans show his foresight. His determination not to ruin her special moments and to make a real proposal, not just any old one, speaks volumes about his serious intentions. Embarrassment and his reluctance to marry make him think, but he understands that there is no turning back. Leticia's simple agreement to his terms and her offer of help show her willingness to cooperate. The princess's sincere desire for them to be happy and her support become a real gift for Theo. Her remark about how ladies should appear in society and her concern for Yuna's reputation show her concern. The warning that a secret wedding could be bad for her reputation gives him pause. Letitia's wish that Yuna would not be kept locked up like she was shows her compassion and kindness. Yuna's appearance with a tray of freshly baked pie and her apologies for the delay interrupt their serious conversation. Theo's enthusiastic story about baking the chestnut pie herself and her desire to treat him brings a warm smile to his face. Letitia's enthusiastic review of the hot pie and her anticipation of the delicious treat fill the dinner with warmth. Theo, deeply touched by the fact that Yuna remembered his words, looks at her tenderly. Letitia's offer to try the pie and her attempt to leave become Theo's signal to take action. A sudden memory of pre-trip business and her hasty departure leave Yuna and Theo alone. Letitia's clever trick of deliberately giving them some privacy and her request for a piece of pie show her wisdom. Theo's playful remark that he needs at least 2 pieces to keep his brain functioning brings a smile to everyone's face. Yuna's late visit to his office and her question about whether he had been working shows her concern. Theo's awkward excuse that he was just thinking and his offer to sit down create an intimate atmosphere. The Duke's caring gesture of wrapping her in a towel and his words about her getting cold show his tenderness. Theo's obsessive repetition about the taste of the pie and his compliments cause Yuna to become slightly irritated. Her gratitude for his words and her happy smile show that she appreciates his attention despite his clumsiness. The thought of them spending this night together and his determination to protect Yuna fills his heart with awe. Fear and anxiety about where it will all begin and her inability to sleep betray her anxiety. A gentle kiss on her forehead and his decision to sleep in the office so as not to embarrass her show his tact. Yuna's shock and bewilderment at his words and her question about why he is leaving reveal her disappointment. The explanation that there was a sofa in the office and his reluctance to disturb her sounded like a polite refusal. Her desperate attempt to hold on to him and her words about how she is already holding on with all her might show her vulnerability. Her timid request to lie down together and her embarrassed look become a real revelation for Theo. The guess that her energy was caused by the tea she had drunk and his embarrassed smile diffuse the situation. Agreeing to talk a little and go to bed together becomes the beginning of a new, more intimate chapter in their relationship. Yuna tenderly talks about her daily routine as they spend the evening together. The girl's words that she is hearing about Giselle for the first time and his calm response show their growing trust. The friend's decision to go out for the famous dessert to cheer up a depressed Emily speaks volumes about their unity. Yuna's confession that she had long wanted to order something and her story about taking care of the house while he was away touches him. Her tender words about him wanting to return soon, remembering their cozy home, show her love. A warm welcome and her sincere admission that she missed him very much become the best reward for him. Theo's mysterious admission that he has something to confess to her leaves Yuna puzzled. The desire to remember this day every year on their wedding anniversary and see her happy smile reveals his romantic nature. The long-awaited and exciting proposal to have their wedding becomes the fulfillment of Yuna's cherished dream. Memories of her first day in the principality and her loneliness only highlight how much everything has changed. The image of the bloody and cruel man who was called her husband now seems distant and unreal to her. The modest room that became her new home and her loneliness during the first days make her feel a little sad. The lack of choice and complete dependence on someone else's will, oddly enough, did not burden her, but gave her hope. The recognition that her husband turned out to be a very good man fills her heart with warmth and gratitude. Memories of the kind people she met here and their support make her smile. Her belief that one day they will become a real family and her patience are fully rewarded. The question of how long it takes to become a real husband and wife and her inner impatience betray her anxiety. A simple touch on his hand and her question about the coming winter fill their evening with intimacy and tenderness. The upcoming snowfall and their mutual feelings, finally becoming obvious, promise them a new, happy future. A request not to be angry with him if it snows on their wedding day, and her promise to be very happy seal their union. Theo's gentle agreement and his words that it's time to act fill their night with anticipation. His frustration at wanting to leave when she fell asleep and his inability to resist her charm show his weakness. The knowledge that everything is going the same way as before and his inability to leave makes him smile. The dream that after the wedding he will finally be able to tell everyone that Yuna is his wife fills his heart with happiness. His sleepy question about whether it was morning yet and his gentle suggestion to lie down a little longer show their closeness. Yuna's embarrassed question about whether they slept holding hands and his calm confirmation make her blush. Their genuine concern that he was uncomfortable and his reassurance that everything was fine showed their care for each other. The sudden memory of seeing Letisa off and her regret at her imminent departure reveal their budding friendship. Theo's reassuring words that they will meet again and his smile give her hope. The admission that Princess Letisa is an important person and his happy appearance leave Yuna with mixed feelings. Yuna's decision to wait outside and her trust in Letisa demonstrate their close and warm relationship. A quick farewell and her hasty departure leave Yuna alone with her thoughts and expectations. The nanny's concern that Her Highness would not become confused shows her care and devotion. The sudden appearance of Princess Alina and her joyful cry add a touch of surprise to the scene. The students' shock and bewilderment at how she managed to get there, and their curiosity create intrigue. The familiar greeting and the question about where Princess Essel spent the night make Letizia slightly irritated. The fact that her name is Elin and her story about spending the night at Villa Light show her confidence. A student's dismissive remark that the hotels in the Principality are simply awful makes everyone laugh. The snide question about whether she came from the dump and his remark about the strange smell become a real insult to Letitia. Her decision to remain silent and not snap back, so as not to give them a reason for further bullying, shows her wisdom and endurance. Professor Miquelon from the Imperial Academy welcomes students arriving for an internship. The distribution of handouts and a brief briefing marked the beginning of their long-awaited internship in the Principality. The announcement of an upcoming practice at the fortress wall in 2 days causes mixed feelings in everyone. Letitia's timid request for the missing piece of paper and her embarrassed appearance attract the teacher's attention. The awkward situation with the lack of paper and his offer to come and take it from him makes everyone smile. The teacher's disdainful look and his thoughts about the princess from a weak kingdom reveal his bias. His dissatisfaction with the fact that she was sent to school instead of being married off shows his narrow-mindedness. The beginning of the explanation and its stern appearance make students prepare for serious work. The students smirked when they heard that everything in the Principality was weak and that the magic stones were at a rudimentary level. Letizia's disbelief that there could be problems in such a warm and cozy mansion shows her naivety. The warning about vagrants and bandits at the fortress wall and his advice to take guards with them alarm the students. Luciana's provocative question about whether the Phoenix Principality is worse than Ashlyn takes everyone by surprise. The explanation that Phoenix is under the protection of the Great Empire, but Ashlyn is not, hurts Letitia deeply. The insulting remark that she is the princess of a backward kingdom and the suggestion to call her the backward princess brings her to tears. The tactless question about whether she is crying and his offer to call her mother become the last straw. His caustic remark about her mother not being able to come here and his insolent smirk show his cruelty. The insistent demand for an answer and his mocking tone make Letitia clench her fists in frustration. The sudden appearance of a mysterious figure and his question about who they are interrupts their mockery. His imperious declaration that he is her guardian and his disdainful look silence the insolent students. Theo's icy gaze directed at the teacher and his question about what he is doing here promises a brutal reprisal. Theo's contemptuous smirk and his question about what kind of teaching this is makes Miquelon go cold with horror. The accusation that he simply stood and watched, and his angry look, do not bode well for the teacher. The memory of the warning and the rumors of the Duke's cruelty make Lucian regret his insolence. The image of a bloodthirsty demon who eats people alive, and his own imagination, paint him terrifying pictures. Icy anger and contempt for the arrogant imperial youth who dared to bully his student overwhelm Theo. Lucian's remorse and tears at the sight of the angry Duke show his fear and helplessness. Theo's confusion at why she silently endures everything and his desire to protect her speak volumes about his feelings. The polite request to step outside for a moment and his calm tone conceal his true intentions. The news that her sister is waiting for her outside comes as a complete and pleasant surprise to Letitia. The dire warning addressed to the frightened teacher and his promise that the Duke would come for her if she was offended leave no doubt as to his seriousness. The long wait and worry that she is still not there make Yuna nervous. Her regret that she didn't have time to see her off in the morning and her desire to tell her that she did a great job show her concern. A joyful cry and the appearance of Letitia interrupt her anxious thoughts, filling her heart with warmth. Her gentle hugs and happy smile become the best reward for Yuna for her anticipation. The question about her well-being and her quiet answer show their close and warm relationship. The confession that it was as if a weight had been lifted from her soul, and she hadn't even noticed how she had started crying, touches Yuna. Compassion and understanding of how difficult it was for her to be alone in a foreign country brings them even closer together. The offer to return to the mansion, eat something tasty and relax, becomes a sign of true friendship for Letitia. The question of why Letitia called her big sister and her embarrassed look makes Yuna smile. Yuna's enthusiastic wish that Letitia really was her little sister shows her genuine affection. Theo's sudden appearance in the garden and his happy appearance interrupt the girls' idyllic conversation. Yuna's enthusiastic recounting of Letitia calling her a big sister brings a warm smile to the Duke's face. Theo's playful remark about being the older brother now lightens the mood. Important documents listing precautions for travel to the village near the wall become a new topic of discussion for them. Yuna's anxious question about the list of necessary things and safety measures reveals her anxiety. The news of pickpockets and kidnappings in the area of the northern wall leaves the girl in complete shock. Theo's confident statement that he will take care of everything and his calm smile give her confidence. The offer to return to the mansion and discuss his plan becomes the only way out for Yuna. An invitation to eat something tasty and go for a walk comes as a pleasant surprise to Letitia. The jealous thought that eating sweets and hanging out with Yuna is part of his duties makes Theo annoyed. The reminder of a serious exam after the practical and the need to prepare make Letitia think. Yuna's surprise at not knowing about the exam and Letitia's calm response show their different worlds. The timid request to buy that very lemon cake that Lady Emily mentioned and her hope that it will cheer her up touches Yuna. Her enthusiastic agreement and her determination to buy the cake no matter what show her kindness. The decision to return to the mansion to study and her generous offer to share a cake brings them closer together. Letitia's clever trick of deliberately leaving him alone with Yuna and his guests make Theo smile. Theo's enthusiastic agreement to the date in the square and his happy appearance show his joy. Yuna's playful suggestion to go somewhere other than the square intrigues and excites the Duke. A trip to a village near the fortress wall becomes a new adventurous stage in their relationship. Theo's reassuring words about there being nothing to be afraid of, and his request to tell her if she doesn't like something, show his concern. The sudden appearance of the Duke and his retinue in a wheelchair plunges the manager into real shock. The manager's premonition and his guess that this lady is the new Archduchess turn out to be correct. The ingratiating greeting and his flattery show fear and awe of the powerful ruler. Yuna's sincere desire to see how the village near the wall lives and her apologies for the unexpected visit disarm the manager. The assumption that their visit was related to the Academy's workshop and his joyful laughter show his hospitality. His confident assertion that he has everything under control and his invitation to move on makes everyone smile. The comment about needing to finish before the students arrive and her desire for everything to be real show her perfectionism. The scene with the throwing of dirt and his order to do everything generously and evenly leaves Yuna puzzled. The question of what they are doing and his enthusiastic explanation about the wall of manure leaves her in shock. The horror and disgust on Yuna's face from the word manure and her silent question show her complete lack of understanding. The order to water thoroughly, the dirtier the better, and his enthusiasm evoke mixed feelings in everyone. The story of how they are already hauling trash from houses and his plans for the future make Yuna feel horrified. The offer to invite the guys to play pickpockets and his enthusiastic look finally finish off the girl. A direct question about why they deliberately turn the streets into mud and her bewilderment baffle him. Theo's confident assertion that it is not dangerous and his sly smile only increase her suspicions. The manager's confirmation that the village near the wall is a calm place and his confident appearance calm her down a little. A story of a comfortable life thanks to reserves of magical stones and a large mine reveals the secret of their prosperity. She admires the women's use of cutting techniques brought from the kingdom of Ashland and their hard work. The mention that the guards guarding the wall are former knights of his lordship and that everything is under control here finally calms her down. His confident statement that there is no need to worry about order and his happy smile show his pride in his village. Yuna's confusion about why the Academy memo says the opposite makes Theo smile. The Duke's explanation that this is precisely the picture the Empire wants to see in the Principality reveals their political intrigues. The administrator's admission that the Empire refuses to acknowledge the Principality's prosperity and their demand to create the appearance of poverty outrages Yuna. Theo's promise to clean up after the students' departure and compensate for the losses shows his concern for his people. The satisfaction of having brought Yuna here and having her see everything for herself fills the Duke with pride. Doubts and reluctance to participate in this deception are reflected on the face of a girl who is not accustomed to lies. Theo's direct question about whether she was angry and her admission that she didn't like it at all show her honesty. The explosion of righteous anger and her words about how this is all simply wrong take him by surprise. The fear that if rumors spread about the bad situation in the principality, everyone would start condemning Theo shows her concern. Her reluctance to be slandered and her words about his services to the principality touch him to the depths of his soul. The fear that students will see the deliberately polluted village and start to gossip about it forces her to act. Theo's concern that she is angry with him and his delight at her concern fill his heart with tenderness. Trying to calm her down and his gentle words for her not to be so angry show his love. A strong hug and his promise to do everything as she wants becomes a sign of his complete trust for her. His sincere confession that he will do everything as she wants and his gentle smile finally melt her heart. Yuna is confused by how someone can have such firm and strong breasts. The question of what is happening here and their bewilderment at this touching scene show their confusion. The accusation of lack of tact and his bewilderment at such a harsh reaction make everyone laugh. The surprise of being personally comforted by their lordships and the feeling that they are healing their wounds moves them to tears. The joy and gratitude that their lordship will not leave them and their tears of happiness show their devotion. The manager's cunning plan to change the tour route and show off the pride of the principality, the mine of magical stones, brings a smile to everyone's face. Theo's casual remark that he had listened in general terms and his thoughtful expression betray his weariness. Julius's angry outburst and his demand to listen carefully show his concern for his master. The story of the Duke's strange orders to buy lemon pie and go to the village near the wall leaves the secretary perplexed. The memory of the perfect date with Yuna and their time together makes Theo smile. The thought of them trying local food and walking around the city fills his heart with warmth and tenderness. The question of whether he had passed the cake and his calm response show his trust in his assistant. Julius's words that he did the right thing and the gratitude of the residents come as a pleasant surprise to Theo. The confusion about what they are thanking him for and his confused look make Julius smile. The explanation that they no longer have to put on this whole show and his joy show his relief. Julius's fear of a possible war and his confidence that the Empire cannot win as long as he is here betray his loyalty. The surprise that the Duke, who had previously shown no interest in the affairs of the principality, had changed so much makes Julius think. The admission that all these changes are due to her ladyship and his happy smile show his gratitude. The sudden announcement that he and the Archduchess are planning a wedding leaves Julius in complete shock. Theo's delighted cry and his awkward attempts to maintain his balance only make him laugh. The order to sort everything out properly and his desire to get it done before the first snow shows his impatience. The realization that early winter has already arrived and that snow could start falling as early as tomorrow makes Julius panic. The enormous to-do list, which includes remodeling the banquet hall, choosing musicians, and tidying up the outbuilding, terrifies him. The endless lists of guests, menus, flowers, and other wedding chores seem like an impossible task to him. The panic fear that he needs to do all this before the first snow and his desperate look become the funny ending to this story.